We will now begin the City of Boynton Beach City Commissioners meeting. Would everyone please rise for an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Mayor Justin Katz. And in honor of Rosh Hashanah, celebrating year 5778 in the Jewish calendar, I will do the Shekianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehekianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, enabled us to reach this season. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Grant.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katz.
Here.
Commissioner McCrae.
Here.
Commissioner Romulus.
Present.
Commissioner Casello.
Present.
All present.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
I don't have any, but I'd like for somebody to tell me about this feedback we're getting up here. It's bothering me.
It happens again. I think it's mine, so I apologize. And so I wanted to talk about our future agenda item, item G. I know that on August 15th, Commissioner Casello put that up on the future agenda, and we all approved it as a board. And so I didn't feel that it was right for Commissioner Casello to remove it unilaterally. I feel that if we have an item on the future agenda list, that we would have to remove it as a board, not individually. And so that's why I brought it up. And so, Commissioner Casello, if you'd like to make a motion to remove it, or I would also have a discussion on it on October 3rd with all the other board meetings that advisory board policies that we are talking about.
Educate me, Mr. Mayor. Is this policy or a procedure on when we put things on future items? Or if we put them on as a commission, can we take them off as a commissioner? Does it?
What I would like is that I would like
but it doesn't take a vote to get something on the future agenda. So why would it take a vote to get something off the future agenda? That's my question, I guess.
Because I want to make it open. Because if anybody from the commission wants to have a discussion item that we want to discuss, we can't talk about it and violate the sunshine laws. However, once it's approved on the future agenda item list, then it would take an act of the commission to take it off.
Okay, I make a motion that remove it from the future agenda.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Do we have 4-1? So it is removed from the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Proposed resolution number 17-086, ratification by City Commission of the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Resolution is passed. Now we will conduct the second public budget hearing for full year 2017-2018 annual operating budget. Tim?
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Tim Howard, Assistant City Manager. You've seen this presentation in a couple different forms over the last few months. What you have in front of you are two resolutions. One is the final millage rate for next year, which we are proposing at 7.9 mils, which is the same as this year. The second resolution is a budget resolution that will adopt budgets for a number of funds that we approve annual budgets for. I have a very brief, abbreviated PowerPoint if you want me to run through it. There's copies of it in the back of the room on the table, along with copies of the two resolutions and agenda item that's in your agenda packet in the back of the room. The purpose of this second public hearing is to adopt a final millage rate and final budgets for fiscal year 17-18. Total for all funds are $203 million. $83.2 million is for the general fund, or it makes up 41.2% of all funds. The general fund, the proposed millage rate 7.9, like I mentioned previously. The actual tax increase is 6.43% per the state trim calculations over the rollback rate of 7.4224. Average citywide property values increased approximately 8.25%. This is the proposed tax levy at 7.9 and what property taxes it generates for the year. These were adjustments to the general fund budget from the workshops in July to present based on commission action. One is the reestablishment of the red light camera fund and the movement of personnel from police over to that fund. Also, the proposed budget had a proposed increase in sanitation rates. That ordinance did not pass, so we readjusted the general fund with a transfer, reduced the transfer in from sanitation. The bottom line is we are recommending an appropriation of $118,100 of fund balance to fund the general fund budget for next year. These were the funds that were affected with those commission decisions from July to the last commission meeting, which is the general fund, the traffic fund, and the solid waste fund. This slide, which is hard to read on the screen, which is why I have it in the back of the room, goes through all the funds and the amounts that we are budgeting, and the total of that totals the $203 million. I can run through it for you if you want me to. I'll be more than happy to. Or if everybody can read it, I'm fine with that too.
I'm okay with documents that are in the back.
These were the general fund departments for the current year budget, 16-17, the proposed budget 17-18, and the amount of change from one year to the next. It's broken out by our departments within the general fund. Starts off with city commission, runs through financial services, information technology, city attorney, the police divisions, fire, economic development, planning and zoning, streets and maintenance, schoolhouse, museum, recreation. That totals the $83.2 million for the general fund. That's the end of my slideshow.
Go ahead.
And Tim, I wanted to mention too, as far as raises go for employees, we are still bargaining with fire and with our blue and white collar SEIU union. So right now, what's funded in the budget is a 2.5% increase for unrepresented general employees. And then we will be concluding, hopefully, where's Julie? Oh, Julie went home, she's sick. In the next 30 to 60 days on the other two contracts. It may or may not require budget amendment, depending on the direction I get from you in closed door.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick questions. The monies that we are not expecting now because the trash fee wasn't to be increased, voted not to be increased, how much money is that actually? Is that $400 and some odd $1,000?
It reduced the revenue on the sanitation fund by $460,000.
460.
And it reduced the transfer out of sanitation into the general fund by $400,000.
So it charted to the general about $400,000.
Right.
Okay, and how we're making that up? We're using some of the red light camera money? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, two things. One is that, mainly that with the reinstitution of the red light cameras, we are able to move the 3 staff members, their personnel cost from the general fund over to the red light camera, which was like $181,000 or $188,000, which freed up, offset part of that $400,000 that we reduced it by, and then we're appropriating $118,000 out of fund balance.
Okay, that $118,000 is coming out of what fund balance?
Our reserve, our carryover from previous years. As of the end of 2016, the general fund had a fund balance of $16 million. Of that, 8.3 is set aside for emergency reserves, which is based on our upcoming budget amount. It's 10%. The policy is 10% of the upcoming budget. So 8.3 of that 16 million set aside for emergency reserves.
So although it's a minimum amount of money, it's still it's a good amount. So we're dipping into the reserves to balance this.
Correct.
Okay. And Jim, to our lawyer, is there? I think the vote was. Could you tell me what the vote was not to pass the trash increase?
I think, Judy, you'd have to...
Judy, can you get... I'm sorry, Judy.
I wouldn't want to say without checking. My memory's not going to be there.
Was it 3-2? Because it failed,
3-2.
right? Are you talking about the ordinance
Okay.
items,
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Okay, so...
That failed on a 3-2.
3-2 vote. And this, I guess, would go to Jim. Jim, my question to you is that those people who are on the prevailing side of that vote, the 3-2 vote, they could, at this particular time, if they so desired, to have a reconsideration?
They would have to put it on the agenda, and we would have to amend the agenda to do a reconsideration of an ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay.
You don't do those at the same meeting that comes up, so it could go on for a future reconsideration.
Okay. So even if we pass the budget tonight, that could come up at a later date for reconsideration?
The passage of the budget is non-binding on
Non-
that issue.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
My comments is, first of all, in regards to this budget, my take is that, first of all, I see ways that we could have saved even more. And my take is that for the whole while I've sat up here over 10 plus years, okay, this is going to be another time that I'm going to vote not in favor of the budget for this city. And I do say with regrets, I will not be voting. I talked to Lori this morning. I have my reasons. Next, I am kind of tired of dipping into reserves to keep our city going. I'm just saying, you know, I see where there's wasteful spending in my sight, and I will not be voting in favor of this budget.
Are there any more comments from the board, or may I open it up to the public?
Sure, I might as well take the opportunity so I can state one thing. I know that in the past, and I think it's still a future agenda item, there's a parcel of land the city owns just to the east of Leisureville on Boynton Beach Blvd. I've become aware through contact with Habitat for Humanity, and I feel like they've probably reached out to you guys too, that they're interested in acquiring that piece. The problem is that that's a valuable piece of developable land for single-family units and would generate revenue for the city. So while I'm provided the opportunity to talk about something, even though it's not on the agenda, it's directly related to the budget, I would urge each of you to direct Habitat for Humanity to seek the many properties that we own throughout the city that are not prospective development pieces that could generate revenue. That right there, I don't know how much it's worth, but it's a piece of land that could put upwards of a half dozen single-family detached units. It's got to be worth a couple $100,000 at least. I would urge you guys to simply and graciously to Habitat say not to pursue that property, because if we give it to them, we're giving it to them. We're not generating any revenue, and there's plenty of land available throughout the city that we could give to them that have more pressing home ownership needs than that particular area. So that right there is a potential revenue generator. So again, I'd urge everybody to respectfully tell Habitat that that property hopefully will be for sale and it'll generate money for the city.
In that same vein, Mr. Mayor, if I could add that I know that, and I've talked to the city manager numerous times on this parcel of land, it's approximately 2 acres of land up off Boynton Beach Blvd. I believe it's off Nichols Ave. That's up there that I don't think we have any really potential use for it for the city. So I would like to have that part of the consideration too.
If we want to have a discussion regarding city land and have issue RFP, that's something that we can discuss later.
Would you like me to place an item on the next agenda or in the next couple
Regarding
meetings regarding our disposal process and what the options are for those two parcels?
Yeah, and that way we let the development community know that we're interested in selling. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the public if they have any comments regarding this year's budget.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Yes, I do have a comment. Commissioner Casella, you and I very seldom agree, so yay, we finally get to agree. I would very much like to see the sanitation charges come back up because I was all for this, and I was quite upset at the time over the summer that the public were not allowed to speak when we had these budget discussions about this, because I think this is a great idea, and I absolutely hate that we're taking money out of the city's budget, and I really think we should have this. It's not, what is it, $10 or something? It's not going to kill me or anybody else. A month?
$1 a month.
A month? Well,
Right. Yeah.
is it a
$1
month?
increase.
Yeah, it's not going to kill me. I get great service. I absolutely love my trash people. They do a fabulous job. I do wish we could get another truck so it doesn't run behind time, but I've got to say, especially my recycle guy, I don't know his name, but he's like the nicest man on the planet, and even takes my little bins back up to my house for me because I'm so nice to him. He's super nice to me, and we get outstanding service in my neighborhood, and I have no qualms about it at all. And if it would solve this budget problem and get us the truck we need so our trash runs on time, I really don't take an issue with that. Because, the bigger issue with me is what day is the trash going to be picked up, depending on whether all the trucks are running or not. So I have no qualms about paying for this. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way. And Commissioner Casella, it's nice to agree with you. So I hope you guys will reconsider this and change your votes. Thank you.
You're wearing me down, Susan.
Pardon?
You're wearing me down over time.
Oh, I am? Oh, okay. Better late than never, right?
Cindy Falco di Carrata, 316 Northwest 1st Avenue. I'm glad you have a good experience with the trash. I don't. My trash has been sitting out of my house for 3 weeks. They have not come by to pick it up. I have not had my recycle bin picked up. Finally today, after 3 weeks, this was prior to hurricane. They just never came by. Our whole block, my neighbor next door is continually on the case of having them come to please pick up our trash. So to give an increase on something that I'm not even getting serviced on a regular basis is quite a frustration. I work hard for my money. My husband works hard for his money. We work very hard for our dollars and try to keep them to where we can live without having to be a burden on anybody else. And so I am against raising monies to the people for the waste management or whoever is picking up our trash that actually is not picking it up. But thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
What street do you live on?
I live off of Northwest, right here, 1st Avenue and 3rd Street. 316, yeah. It's been there, like I said, prior to hurricane. Nobody's even picked up on the Fridays when they're even supposed to pick up the rubbish. Well, we were quite concerned with the hurricane coming, that it was still out there, not knowing what was going to happen, and our neighbors had stuff. So yeah, it's been a little problem, but thank you.
Well, did you call to report this?
My neighbor called many times, and then I lost cell first.
The response from the city was?
They're coming, and they don't come. And her synopsis was that we're not in an affluent area, and that was her synopsis, not mine, that we're not in the affluent area, so we got kind of left behind. But I said, well, I'm sure they're busy, and still to this day, I think today they finally picked up my trash, but they have not picked up the roadside, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't, but we haven't had it from before the hurricane as well. Thank you.
Cindy, come back, because
Yes,
I need
yes.
you said something that just struck a nerve. You said that you're not in an affluent area.
Yes, that's what we were told.
That's what you was told.
Well, that's
by
what my
who?
neighbor said. I said, I don't know that that's true. I'm not going to go there, but that's what she said.
You don't have to go there, because I heard some things with FP&L. They said to some people that live in my area that we was going to be last because our area wasn't affluent. So, I know
Right.
some people are saying things. I'm just glad you brought
Yeah.
it out. Thank you.
I mean, that was the way she synopsised
Thank
it.
you.
But okay, you're welcome.
Just for the record, I'd like to go on record saying I don't think any of our city departments would ever say that we're not coming there because you're not affluent enough, or however they might have worded that. I think that's the most ridiculous statement that could ever be made, and I understand that was hearsay, and you don't have proof of that. But I can't believe that was said, and I know that our department heads and staff would never say anything of such. So I just want to go on record as saying that.
Commissioner, I would echo that same sentiment. I know our staff, and I know Jeff Livergood works very hard to keep things on pace, and there have been a lot of circumstances, especially with these hurricanes going on. So if anyone's having any issues, I recommend that you personally email Jeff, because he takes his job very seriously. And, Jeff, I know you won't, you'll be upset at me later for this, but you'll be fine. Jeff takes his job very seriously, and if you have any issues that you're having with sanitation, please email Jeff. I doubt he has any issues with that, and he'll personally take care of it. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I know that our departments in our city very well takes important care of our residents, and we do not put anyone in any ranks of affluency or non-affluency. So I take offense to any type of wording in that sense.
Mayor, let me make a final comment. I am not going to try to take up a city staff, they do an excellent job. My take is that for Lori, the city manager, it was stated tonight, if you could do a follow-up and get some
have the
information back
address.
to me. Thank you. That's what
Absolutely.
I'm saying. You know, before I pass judgment, I like for it to be followed up because, you know, we do have problems sometimes when it comes to customer service here in this area, not with staff itself, the ones that does the job, but we do have people that's answering the phones. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, my comments are more of in defense regarding the bid for Habitat for Humanity. Currently, the property is generating no revenue for the city, and so Habitat for Humanity building improvements on the land would generate revenue. As for the extra dollar per month is because the Public Works Fund, the sanitation fund, has been paying for the city for the past, I guess, 10 years since the recession. We've been taking more money out of that fund to pay for the city's needs, and with that, we have not been able to upkeep with the fleet maintenance, and so when one truck goes down, there's a ripple effect through all the neighborhoods. And so I'm looking that we are actually keeping up with the fleet fund this year, and it will hopefully be better next year and be better at the following year after that. And is there any more comments before I call for the motion? May I have a motion to approve?
Mayor, I need to read these two resos.
Okay, thank you.
By title only. R17087, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, adopting a final millage rate for the city's general operating fund for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2017, and ending September 30th, 2018, providing that the final millage rate of 7.9000 mils is 6.43% above the rollback rate of 7.4224 mils, providing for severability, conflict, and an effective date. Need a motion and vote on that first.
May I have a motion to approve the final millage rate?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Millage rate passes 5-0 unanimously.
Resolution R17088, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, adopting a final budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2017, and ending September 30th, 2018, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
May I have a motion to approve the final budget?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much, Tim. Moving on to informational items by members of the City Commissioner. Vice Mayor, would you like to begin?
I have none at this time.
Commissioner McCray?
I'd just like to say, you know, that I've been seeing on TV how they have been telling, you know, citizens, you know, around about how to separate debris, garbage. I'm just saying, you know, and if we can kind of get the word out, you know, because in District 2, I see a lot of mattresses in with leaves and stuff, and I'm just saying, you know, we might have to go start going door to door, but this is going to hamper the entire pickup for the city. I'm just saying we need to learn how to separate. This is what I'm saying. If staff can help us get that word out, I'm just saying we got community. I'm just saying while you out riding around, you know, if y'all see something wrong, knock on the door, tell the individuals, you know, this is not acceptable. I'm just saying sometimes we have to educate the citizens here in this city. Thank you.
You know, like everyone here, I weathered Hurricane Irma. I was able to go on national news on MSNBC, which I thought was very good to get exposure for Boynton Beach across the country. On the 16th, I attended the POW and MIA remembrance that the Boy Scouts held at Veterans Park. I also attended the county-sponsored barbecue with Mac Bernard and the county firemen. And one of the comments that I heard at that meeting is how does Public Works get in contact with our residents? And so that's kind of where I'd like to see if we can look into having some sort of volunteer list of emails, phone numbers for text messages, so that we can get the word out what's going on if your trash is not going to get picked up today and when you can expect your trash to be picked up. Because, you know, not knowing when your trash is getting to be picked up is getting to be a problem. And then last night I attended the Historical Societies of Boynton Beach. I was on a farmer's perspective. Talked about farming back in the 50s and 60s in Boynton Beach, which was very informative and interesting. Commissioner Romulus.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad everyone is safe and sound, and hopefully everyone has their power back. I just got mine back Saturday night. It was a very hot week. So again, just very grateful that everyone's okay and that we were spared the worst of Irma. And I pray that we are all safe as I believe it's Maria that's heading down or in this direction, general direction, and pray also for the individuals in the Caribbean that are in the path of this hurricane. I do have a quick introduction to make. We have someone here in the audience who is from Haiti. He is the mayor of Saint-Marc in Haiti, and he is also the president of the Mayor's Association in the entire country. So he is sitting here. This is Mayor Franz Ulysse. You can say hello, wave. He's just a delegate here visiting us. Thank you. So that is all I have for now. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Cassello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being a New Englander, this is my first experience with hurricane-type force winds, and although they were just tropical winds, that was enough for me. I could say that. I had the pleasure to spend some time in the EOC Center with our staff and our department heads, and watch them run that emergency center down there, keeping us, city of Boynton Beach up and running and safe during a time. And the sacrifices that they make being in that EOC for what must seem like a month, while their own families at home are experiencing what I experienced. So I thank you for that privilege of spending some time down there, and you sent me home at the right time. And I appreciate that. This past Saturday, I was up at the Green Acres Public Library. I spent some time up there with State Rep. Laurie Berman and State Senator Jeff Clemens, along with a couple of other elected officials for the FEMA disaster assistance sign-up. We had over 1,000 people come up through the library signing up for one form of assistance or another due to Hurricane Irma, and hopefully that we can maybe get something like that set up down here in the Boynton Beach area in the very near future. That would be much appreciated. If you just indulge me once, this was handed to me. It's a type of a public announcement, and it was given to me because, as you know, I don't play much golf. But this is a public notice, and it starts off with, this was given to me by the head pro at the Links Golf Course, Municipal Golf Course. As you know, if you've been following the golf course, we've spent quite a bit sum of money up there getting it ready for this fall's play with putting in new Tiff Eagle greens. And so I'm just going to read this this announcement, and just bear with me. Great news. The Links at Boynton Beach Golf Course is happy to announce the reopening of its entire facility on Sunday, October 1st. Hurricane Irma knocked them down, but not out. Staff is in major cleanup mode right now. Customers can expect to see new Tiff Eagle greens on our championship course, large practice putting green, and our practical pitching and chipping green. Customers will also enjoy hitting range balls on our new re-leveled and expanded driving range tee box. The month of October, daily fee golf rate for playing 18 holes on our championship course before 11:30 a.m. will be a very affordable price of $27 plus tax per person. For membership offers or any questions, please call our administrative office at 561-742-6502 or 561-742-6505. Also, for more information, please check out the links at Boynton Beach website and follow them on Facebook. And remember, it's always a great day at the links. Ron, thank you for all your hard work out there, and we're really looking forward to a very successful fall and golfing season. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just say that if politics doesn't work out for him, he can be an information.
I also forgot, I have two announcements. We have a Hurricane Irma supply drive starting this Saturday at 10 a.m. There are 5 different locations in Boynton Beach and one in unincorporated Boynton Beach at the YMCA. They're asking for specific items. This is working with the Red Cross. In addition, this Saturday is our first Boynton Beach Art District event, and they are working with the United Way. and there's also flyers in the back. That event is from 6 to 10 p.m. There will be food trucks, live music, and the art walk that is the Boynton Beach Art District. So I hope to see everyone there. All right. Any more announcements?
I don't have an announcement, but I do have a concern. And this came from the Boynton Beach Wildcats, and I have a like for the city manager. It was in regards to food trucks parking outside when they're having games, and I'm just saying if there's anything that we have in place, if you could follow with Mike out there and let him know what is going on, and also shoot me an email to let me know what is going on, please. I'm just saying, you know, they're trying to do their concessions. We got people coming from out of town trying to do concessions, and I'm just saying if there's a policy in place, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to announcements, community and special events, and presentations. Announcement of recent national, state, and local awards received for the city's marketing and program initiatives.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am Mary DeGraffin Wright, Recreation and Parks Department Events and Program Manager. And to my right is Eleanor Crucell, Public Communications and Marketing Manager. We're tag teaming tonight's presentation. The City of Boynton Beach is pleased to announce that it has recently received 10 national, state, and local awards for marketing and program initiatives. In August, the city received 6 awards from the Florida Festival of Events Association Sensational Awards Competition. The Florida Festival and Events Association promotes and strengthens festivals, events, and fair industries in Florida and has a membership of over 600 organizations that collectively represents 3,500 events throughout the state of Florida. There were over 400 entries this year. The City of Boynton Beach received the following awards. Yappy Happy Hour, second place for collaborative program, and third place for invitation. Police K-9 competition, second place in photography category, and the photo was taken by Mike Landris of the Boynton Beach EMS Director. Recreation and Parks Fun Fair, third place in event guide category. Recreation and Parks Volunteer Program, third place for annual report.
Thank you, Mary. We were notified last week that the city received a second place Savvy Award from the City County Communications and Marketing Association in the category of Communications and Marketing, printed publications for its annual report and calendar. Over 700 entries were submitted and judged by 3CMA, a national organization whose membership consists of public communication employees from national, state, and local municipalities. Events were judged on a problem opportunity statement, intended goals, outcomes, documentation of achievement, budget, and use of outside resources. In July, the city for the first time submitted 3 entries to the Public Relations Society of America's, the Palm Beach Chapter Palm Awards, and received the following awards. First place in the writing category for the article on the City of Boynton Beach adds 2 therapy dogs, and first place in the brochure category for its annual report and calendar. And second place in the program category, special events, for its Yappy Happy Hour. Judging was based on planning, content, creativity, quality, technical excellence, evaluation, and results. Member organizations include such organizations as the Palm Beach MPO, Hilton Hotels, Palm Beach County School District, FAU, Palm Tram, Community Foundation, Discover the Palm Beaches, Port of Palm Beach, etc.
We are proud to represent the city, which prides itself on quality service and community events for the citizens of Boynton Beach. Together, we will continue to strive to promote unity through innovative events and programs. Thank you so much.
I just want to congratulate you again for all the awards. And I just also want to thank you for all of the social media that you did for Hurricane Irma. I've just heard glowing praise from everybody that everybody who likes the city of Boynton Beach knew what was going on and had a plan to implement after the hurricane. So thank you again for all the city staff that were video stars for a little bit, and Eleanor for shooting that video. So thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, I know Eleanor and Mary, the graphic writer, has already left the podium, but I'd like to say to you all, thank you. You all don't like to be seen. You don't all like to be heard. You don't like to toot your own horn. You work very patiently and silently behind the scene, and for that, I'm totally grateful. Thank you. Continue to be quiet, though. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the proclamation for Energy Efficiency Day, which we all did when we did not have power.
For 6 days.
Proclamation. Whereas energy efficiency is the art of getting the same or better performance using less energy, all while cutting utility bills for residential, businesses, and industrial customers. And whereas reliable, affordable energy is vital to our economic prosperity, and energy efficiency is the most productive and cost-effective way to meet our energy needs. And whereas implementing clean energy policies and programs helps boost economic opportunities and job creation while continuing to move toward a sustainable future. And whereas cutting energy waste saves U.S. consumers billions of dollars on their utility bills annually, up to $500 per household from appliance efficiency standards alone. And whereas more than 2.2 million Americans work in the energy efficiency sector in local, good-paying, clean energy jobs that can't be outsourced and increase efficiency and create more of the blank. And whereas residents and businesses of Boynton Beach can continue to contribute to our energy efficiency efforts by learning about participating in our energy edge rebate and property assessed clean energy financing programs. And whereas together the residents of Boynton Beach can continue to contribute to our sustainability efforts by learning more about energy efficiency and practicing smarter energy use in their daily lives. Now, therefore, I, Stephen B. Grant, Mayor of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, to hereby proclaim the 5th of October 2017 as Energy Efficiency Day. Rebecca Harvey, our Sustainability Coordinator, will accept.
Thank you, Mayor Grant. Thank you, Commission. My name is Rebecca Harvey. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator. I'm pleased to accept this proclamation for the City of Boynton Beach to join hundreds of organizations, local governments, businesses, utilities, and individuals across the country that are participating in the second annual National Energy Efficiency Day on October 5th. Energy efficiency means using less energy to provide the same service, by making improvements, including more efficient appliances, lighting and HVAC systems, insulation, doors, windows, and reflective roofs. Costs of upgrades like these usually pay themselves back relatively quickly through reduced energy costs. And because of this, energy efficiency is an attractive first step not only to reduce household and business costs, but to reduce carbon emissions. As many of you know, the city has a climate action plan which establishes goals and strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions through energy efficiency combined with other strategies such as conservation and renewable energy. Meeting our climate goals is more important now than ever as we are feeling impacts of climate change, including more intense hurricanes, hotter temperatures, and increasing tidal flooding from sea level rise. Our plan is to observe National Energy Efficiency Day this October 5th through a social media campaign about the national organization, which has a light bulb challenge for residents and businesses, and also by focusing in on City of Boynton Beach's Energy Edge rebate program and promoting it. This program has been in place since 2011 and uses revenue collected in the Green Building Program Fund to supply rebates to homes and businesses that make energy efficiency improvements. Since its inception, the program has provided 49 total rebates, totaling more than $44,000. I put some brochures at the back table. You're welcome to help yourself to learn more about the Energy Edge rebate program. We're streamlining it and getting it ready to roll out a more targeted promotion on October 5th. Thank you very much.
My question to you, will this be on our website?
Yes, there is a Energy Edge webpage on our website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to public audience. Speakers will be limited to 3-minute presentations. Please state your name and address for the record.
Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I have a question. I believe it's for our city manager. One of the people at my school participates in the CERT program in Delray or Boca, whichever city he lives in, and he was asking if we have one here, and I thought we did, but I said I would double check tonight.
Absolutely, a very strong program that's administered through fire.
Okay.
Yeah, and we used them for the storm.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just questioning because I guess they're not hearing that we have one in other cities. So, Chief Joseph?
I mean, can you do a flyer, I guess, on social media? Let people know that there's a new training program coming up.
Huh. And send a copy to me so I can send it to him. He's like, what's going on there in Boynton, Susan? My second thing is we do not have our city seal behind the dais, and I only noticed this because I have students come to these commission meetings and they go to Boca and get to sit in the mayor's chair with the gavel with the nice picture of the seal behind them and all the pictures that they send to me, and we don't have that here, so they don't get to stand by a nice seal. And every time the mayor reads a proclamation, there's no seal in the background over there. There's the little wire for the thing, so it might be nice to have a seal at some point. My issue today is trees, which I had spoken to Commissioner Romulus about as we were without power. You beat me. I was only 5 days, 23 hours, and 50 minutes without power.
But who's counting?
Not counting at all. No. It was so hot inside my house. The terrazzo was actually warm. Yeah. I know that there's tree ordinances, and I know that they should be enforced, and I know code is overwhelmed on a regular basis, but me being the tree person that comes to you constantly, I think we need to do something about our tree problem. There, at this point, is no excuse that we were all without power as long as we were, because there were ficus trees down all over the place. There were palm trees down. There were all kinds of trees, scheffeleras, that were down. And these are prohibited. Well, no, the palms are not prohibited, but the other trees are on the prohibited list. And I realized people were grandfathered in, but especially if you live in one of the older neighborhoods, this has become a problem. And I think we need to maybe examine this. And as we're moving forward and cleaning up after the storm, maybe we should be enforcing the policy or re-looking at a tree policy. We should not be allowing people to plant their trees underneath lines. Because I know Commissioner McCrae lives in an older neighborhood too. I'm guessing a lot of your problems were the same as Commissioner Romulus's and mine, because these old trees, and I'm all for old trees, but they got to be planted in the right place, and they have to be the right trees. And maybe this is the time for us to start looking at it. And I volunteer to be on that committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess for the new City Hall, Colin, you'll get with the seals? All right, thank you.
Hi, Cindy Falco Di Corrado, 316 Northwest 1st Avenue. I was going to call, I'm up here because I wanted to make it known. On the other day, there was an accident here on Seacrest and Ocean, and it was still dark outside. And the gentleman, my husband and I, we were walking to go down to take a walk down Ocean Avenue for our morning walk, and we heard this really loud bang. So we come around the corner, we're like hoping nobody's dead and there's nothing really tragic. So we called upon this gentleman who, what happened was a car had hit him and took off. And it hit into one of the poles and just went down the street, and his car could not move due to the fact that where he hit him, all the radiation and everything came out of his car and his battery died. So he was upset. So I said, well, let's call the police. We're right here. The police station's right there. We call 911 and they say they'll dispatch somebody. Well, his car is in the far left lane, and we couldn't move it to move over. So all the cars are trying to go around him. It looked like it was going to create more accidents. And we're there 20 minutes, and we're right up the street from the police department. And he's baffled. I'm baffled. I'm like, I don't understand. We're right up the street. And so I called back 911 and I said, we had asked for a police officer to come. We're in a dangerous situation. We're creating havoc because now the gentleman has some glass in the road and cars are trying to go around to miss it. And it was creating people to almost hit each other. And as we're sitting there, another police officer finally, after 20 minutes, was coming back from, I guess, duty. And he says, oh, did you call 911? We said, yes, 20 minutes ago, and no one showed up. But when I had called back, the lady had said that he got redirected to somewhere else. And my friend said the reason why they got redirected, there was like 10 people for a homeless gentleman that was up near I-95. All the police cars were there. And I'm thinking, this is tragic. This is in the dark. This is scary, you know? And so I just wanted to make it known. I'm sure the police officers do a good job, but this was a situation that this man was already frazzled. He's in the middle of the road. We're moving him away from the road, but his car's there, and it created more havoc, and we were like 1 block away. I don't understand why it transpired like that. I don't understand why this gentleman was like more frantic, the fact that his car's in the road, and cars are, I mean, literally almost coming head on, trying to swerve around. And it's just something that to be abreast of. Someone's calling 911. I mean, they did ask if he was hurt, and he said no, and maybe that's why they didn't come. But there were, like I said, my friend who said, I saw 10 at that same time, Cindy, they were over there with a homeless gentleman that was out on near over I-95 Passway, and that's where they were all tied up. And I just thought, well, it's really sad. And this gentleman said he was going to come tonight and share his story as well, and I don't see him here. His name was Robert. But I just wanted you to be aware of that, you know, maybe it's not life and death, but it could have been more problems, and it was right up the street. That's all. Thank you.
Seeing no more public comments, moving on to administrative. We have no one applying for any of our advisory boards. We have 2 alternate spots, alternate spots, not alternative, alternate spots at Arts Commissions, 3 regular and 2 alternate spots on the Building Board of Adjustments and Appeals. We have 1 regular spot on the Employee Pension Board, 1 alternate spot on the Library Board, and 1 alternate spot on the Senior Advisory Board. Moving on to consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an item from consent agenda?
I'd like to pull 6E just for comment.
6E?
That's correct.
All right. Anything else? All right. All right, please.
Yeah, as you know, I had asked for these legal expenses to be published on the consent agenda so we can have transparency and all. And I usually go through them pretty thoroughly. And I was just going through one particular invoice here from the Lyman Reynolds law firm for outside counsel. And this particular invoice came out to $1,790.50. One of the associates there, this Mr. Lewis, he charges us $140 an hour, and Mr. Reynolds charges $165 an hour. So the bill comes out to $1,790.50. And at the end of this whole bill, disbursements, parking, $1. Are you kidding me? We get charged $165 an hour, $140 an hour, and they're going to charge us $1 for parking? This is the stuff that drives me crazy. Really. Hide that parking cost somewhere in your invoice, but please don't isolate it for $1. That's all I have to say. I'm just vetting. Thank you.
Well, you did ask for transparency, sir.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, state so by aye.
Aye.
Now I have a motion to approve the remainder amount of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to the bids and purchases over $100,000.
Motion to approve. I have a comment.
Okay.
The comment is that I want to tell staff thank you for putting this on the agenda like this, because I'm the one that always like to have it transparent for the public to find out how we are spending funds up here. And I want to tell you thank you for taking my advice and following through. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. I'd also like to comment.
Yep.
Simply just asking, is this part of our building wealth in the community, Lori? Is that why this project is spread out like this?
Yes, we took what would normally be one very large project of several $100,000 and broke it down into 11 projects that were more attainable for some of our local contractors to be able to bid on. So this is definitely the first step in our changes to our procurement. And, it's 11 more projects for us to manage, but once we get the swing of it and now that we've made the changes to our procurement, I think it's going to work out very nicely. We've got a lot of good work going to our local business.
And for the benefit of the public, I just want to mention that the two businesses that have been awarded are Cobra Construction of Boynton Beach and the Paving Lady of Boynton Beach. I love the fact that both of these are of Boynton Beach, businesses, and that this is money that's circulating within our community and putting our business owners, helping keep their doors open. This is amazing. This is what I've been asking for a long time, and this is I'm really happy to see this come through.
And if I may add, too, I remember Gary was telling me at one point, sometimes you think, well, we've talked a little bit and had some provisions in the ordinance if local may cost a little bit more sometimes versus going to larger companies who can probably take advantage of economy of scale. But when we actually had some of the bids submitted, our local folks were the cheaper price, which is even better. It makes it even, I think that's kind of a misnomer sometimes where people assume local will be more expensive. Not necessarily, and it wasn't in this case on a couple of them.
Anybody goes by the name of the Paving Lady, they got my vote.
It has been motioned and seconded. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Moving on to public hearing. Jim?
Ordinance 17023, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 1, Article 2, Definitions, amending Chapter 1, Article 3, Relationship to Comprehensive Plan, amending Chapter 3, Article 1, Overview, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Zoning District and Overlays, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 1, Overview, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 2, Residential Districts, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 5, Mixed-Use Urban Districts, amending Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 8, Overlay Zones, amending Chapter 3, Article 5, Supplemental Regulations, amending Chapter 4, Article 3, Exterior Building and Site Design Standards, amending Chapter 4, Article 5, Minimum Off-Street Parking Requirements, amending Chapter 3, Article 4, Section 3D, Zoning Matrix, amending Chapter 3, Article 4, Section 3D, Zoning Matrix Notes, providing for conflict severability codification and an effective date.
Good evening. Mike Rumpf, your Planning and Zoning Director. I have a PowerPoint presentation for you to go over these changes. To start with, just a little bit of just some bullet points, if you will, or summarizing points. This is another installment, if you will, of proposed amendments to the land development regulations as required by the CRA plan recently adopted by the city. Also, the proposed R4 district in here that you've read, I just want to indicate is not being applied to the ground. It's being applied to the regulations. Rezoning of property is not part of this amendment or these amendments. We're just making it available for specific areas in the city that it may be appropriate. The majority of the changes that you'll see, and I'll summarize tonight, really have to do with some titling of our within our land use and zoning scheme. I'll go through several of those. And more complete updates will be forthcoming, particularly in connection with the LDR audit, as we call it, which is going to be more of an all-inclusive and comprehensive update to the land development regulations. I've got a couple tables here. This is the future land use excerpt, or an excerpt of an excerpt from the CRA plan, showing some of the land use classification changes. Same thing with zoning. These two tables are directly taken from the CRA plan, again indicating the impetus behind the changes that you are being presented tonight. Summary of the proposed amendments. The moderate density residential land use classification is being eliminated. and the zoning districts underneath it are being merged underneath the low-density residential classification. The medium-density residential land use classification density is being increased from 10 dwelling units per acre to 11 dwelling units per acre. That's because the R3 district, which would correspond with the high-density residential land use classification, is being moved underneath the medium-density residential land use classification. The high-density residential land use classification is being newly improved, if you will, or repurposed, if you will, to correspond with a new density group of 15 dwelling units per acre. And this splits the difference between really what we do have now as a high in a conventional group of 10 or 11 dwelling units per acre and the 20 dwelling units per acre allowed under the special high land use classification. And also, I'll point out that the new R4 zoning district would fall underneath the high-density residential land use classification, the new and improved high-density residential land use classification, I'll add. Well, new mixed-use district structure. I indicated there's a lot of changes in titles here, whereas currently you'll recall in different applications we've proposed, or you'll have seen requested the mixed-use low 1, mixed-use low 2, mixed-use low 3, and mixed-use core. So being renamed to mixed-use low, mixed-use medium, and mixed-use high. Also, one of those has a density adjustment of 40 dwelling units to 50 dwelling units an acre. Again, somewhat more better splitting between the 20 units an acre on the low end and the 80 units per acre on the high end. Stop me at any time if you have questions on any of these. I mentioned the R4 district a moment ago, that there is not a pending development application that's targeting this or in need of this, but again, from the CRA plan, there is an area that the high-density residential new HDR that I just described at 15 units per acre, which would have the R4 corresponding with it, is recommended in this vicinity of the Heart of Boynton area. So, an example of where it may be appropriately used, but that wouldn't be the only option. Additional amendments in addition to what I just went through. We've updated the workforce housing ordinance, and there are references to it in the land development regulations, and those are being updated. We have a new CRA plan, and there is some simple and more complex references to that plan, and some of the more simple references are being updated in the package that you have before you. There's also, as we're going through the plan, anything can always be improved with additional view of it and review of it, and we've made some basic edits to the LDRs. Affected sections. Anywhere in the plan where references a zoning district title or a land use title that's affected, those are being updated. Again, probably the most common change here has to do with those types of changes. But anyway, definitions, future land use and zoning district relationships, which is a single table you have in your backup. Building and site regulations, of course, the R4 district, which is newly added. And again, in the zoning matrix and notes, supplemental regulations, telecommunication regulations, and parking regulations, to name several. Concludes my brief overview.
So, Michael, we basically just move some numbers around, up or down, basically. That's all we did.
That's a very general, grosser way of looking at it, but yes.
We'll try to simplify it because it gets all wishy-washy.
There's nothing hidden here.
Yeah, right. No, I'm not, and I don't mean to imply that, but I think that for discussion purposes, we keep it very simple and say, look, we eliminated this, we added this.
You're seeing what it's worth. Exactly.
Right.
It's a cleanup.
It's all had to be said, and I think it's understood.
Thank you.
I got a few questions. It's I guess the table 3-1, the residential building and site regulations. So I just want to know which one would townhomes really be put under? Is this kind of like R3 or? So if, regarding how would townhomes fit under this for, I guess, the, R4 or updated R3?
There might be some exceptions in the code, but townhomes are really going to fall underneath the multifamily classification. Sometimes in our regulations, we might say single-family attached or single-family detached. That might delineate, but in general terms, it's a multifamily complex.
And I guess the building heights for the R4, is that the same as R1, or is there, what are the building heights for R4?
Not at all R1, of course. R1 is going to be your single-family districts, which have a maximum height of 30 feet. For example, in comparison, R3, the multifamily classification, has a maximum height of 45 feet.
Okay.
And you can see here, in most respects, we're mirroring the R3 for starters. We may take more look at this during the audit, but just as a quick insert into the code, 45 feet.
Okay. And then I guess, what is, for the duplex, when the lot frontage minimum is 75 feet, is that for each unit of the duplex or the whole's total? Okay. So that any multifamily unit has to have 100 feet frontage for all the units. So if there's 10 units on the R4, there's at least 100 feet. And if
it's a project. Multifamily is more or less a project, a whole, multiple units in it, and it would be a project or a parcel which could contain up to the density allowed. And that would be your minimum dimension.
And if it's on a corner, is it all of those?
Whatever your frontage is.
Okay.
Any property has a frontage, even though a corner technically has, or may have two.
Yeah.
There is technically a frontage with it. It's either the access drive, entranceway, address, or platted orientation.
Okay. And so I guess for R4, that the 650 minimum square foot could be reduced if a developer comes in saying, I'm building 600 square foot units and efficiencies instead of 650?
Not without an amendment, no. This is 650 is being proposed as the minimum.
All right. And so that's kind of where I'm at, is there really any downside to reducing the minimum?
No, it's something, we know that there's a trend to do that.
Yeah.
And an R4 district might be, we will probably see it more so in some of the multifamily, the mixed-use districts.
Okay, the mixed use is, I didn't see that there was a minimum.
But we're going to take a closer look at this. Well, there aren't minimum size limits in the mixed-use districts.
Right.
For just that reason. But we'll take a closer look at this during the audit as well.
Okay. All right, those were my questions. I'll open it up to the public for any questions regarding this ordinance of the land development regulations.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Mike, are you able to turn it back to that screen that showed the map where this R4 implementation is potentially going to be, please? Oh, that was it. Okay, because we can't see it over there to see where it exactly is. Because I seem to recall, and I will say up front that if this goes through, my family stands to make money on this, and I'm speaking against this. If this goes through, we were told at P&D that there is no potential designations or anything happening. And I wasn't part of that because I had stepped away from the dais because of the conflict. But I personally am against this. I think what this potentially could do is horrible. I ran into some people from Delray Beach who came, and I just happened to run into them while I was cleaning my family's properties a couple Sundays ago, and they heard me talking about planning or development or whatever, and they were like, oh my God, you should see what's going on in Delray. They have this new R4, and people are just buying up people's houses in the middle of neighborhoods and putting up 4-story condos and apartments in the middle of single-family housing, like right in the middle of the blocks. And that is what this potentially could do. And while I didn't seem to have much of a problem with it when this came up and I spoke from the public in P&D, once the people in Delray started telling me what's really going on and how this can be applied and how it's happening in Delray and the potential for what could happen here in Boynton Beach, I think none of us who live in a single-family neighborhood want to have a 4-story apartment next door to us because somebody buys 2 or 3 houses, puts them in a little mini block, and then just builds a 4-story building, which is potentially what is going to happen, and which, knowing how things work in this city, that is what's going to happen. And I can say I did not buy my house house on my nice piece of property to live next door to a 4-story apartment building. I live in a single-family neighborhood, and I expect it to stay that way. And while, yes, if this does happen in the cottage district, yes, it makes my properties become worth a whole lot more, but I don't want to see that next to my historic 2.5-story buildings, houses that belong to my family. I just think this is absolutely horrible, and please look at the long-term impact. And while I don't really have a problem with a lot of the rest of this, go for it. The R4, I think the potential for misuse is great. It's actually being misused in Delray, so don't tell me it's not going to happen, because it already is in another city. The city we tend to look to for, what's going to happen here and to look for ideas. And so I would say please pull the R4 out of this and turn that down, because the potential for abuse is so great. And I would challenge you to find anybody who lives in a nice single-family neighborhood who wants to wake up next door to a 4-story apartment or condo building, because they're allowed to do it, and somebody goes through and buys just a handful of houses on a block and makes it happen. You don't want that next door to you. It's totally a NIMBY thing, and yes, it will hurt my property values, so yes, this will keep me from making money, and I still think this is wrong on so many levels. Please take the R4 out of this, and please do not let this happen. I mean, there's so many good aspects, and there's so many possible good things, except the potential for misuse and abuse is too great. And while you all might be reasonable, you might be smart enough to not let these things happen, we all know what can happen with future commissions, and I just really don't want this. And while I agree, Mike and Ed and everybody in P&Z has done a great job trying to put something together that's cohesive. They've done a fabulous job. The potential for abuse is just too great. Please take a look at this and say no, and please think about what could happen in the future, and do you really want that? Do you want that in the city of Boynton? And if you think you do, go take a look in Delray and see what a disaster it looks like down in those neighborhoods. Listen to the people who live in Delray, who now live next door to this, who are pulling their hair out, who are absolutely appalled.
Susan, can you give me a general area of what part of Delray you're talking about? Because I can't think of this area that you're
I just know these
referencing.
people came to me and said it's happening in their neighborhood, and I can only assume from the way they were talking that the construction has started, that it has not been completed yet. And
Because the only
I wish I knew.
4-story apartment buildings I can think of that are newly being built in Delray are along Federal Highway, which is an arterial highway. I can't think of them being in a neighborhood. So what? I can't reference what you're talking about.
I don't
right
even
now.
go into Delray, other than to drive through it to get to work in Boca. So I honestly couldn't tell you. I know these two people made a point of coming over and complaining.
Well, if you can
as they
tell
walked
me,
down.
it would probably ring a bell, because I have family in Delray. I know Delray very well, but I can't think of what. I can't think of these apartment buildings that you're talking about that are right next to residential,
right.
Single story.
I wish I had the foresight to ask them which neighborhood it was in, which part it was in, but I didn't. They were just walking by and saying, please don't let that happen in Boynton, as they were walking into Hurricane Alley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
But the abuse potential is great.
all right, well,
And
yeah.
I'm the one who could benefit, and I'm telling you not to do it. So thank you.
That did bring up some questions. So I, for example, have a third of an acre across the street that is going to be in the HDR zoning. So could they, because of their third of an acre having the 100 square foot frontage, have a 4-story building?
A couple of things. Let me preface by saying something. Given the conviction and fear that you've heard from your speaker, I think a couple of things are important to note. Number one, there's no intended relationship between Boynton Beach's R4 zoning district and what is being proposed in Delray, and I'm not familiar with the zoning scheme, the context of R4. Yeah. I bring this forth with confidence, knowing that this is not we are not proposing elimination of zoning review criteria. There's still a due process. We still would propose that anything be reviewed against our review criteria and our zoning regulations. That's compatibility issues, that's density issues, that's everything. The only thing you have here is an applicant saying, hey, it's even recommended in your CRA plan. So they do have that, but it would still come before staff, the board, and the city commission as an application they'd review against the same criteria. So the answer is difficult to say yes. Anyone could petition for it, but it would be reviewed against the CRA plan, the comprehensive plan, the zoning criteria, and everything else.
Mike,
And right now, someone could come in a petition for a 4-story project in the R3 zoning regulations, which has existed on the books longer than I've been here.
Absolutely, and so that's kind of why I'm, and I see that the R1 maximum height is 30 feet, whereas the R2 is 25 feet, so that you don't have a duplex where there's, I guess, higher than 25 feet. The question is that, a third of an acre is 14,000 square feet. They have the 100 square foot frontage. Could they have 4 units and hit the 45 feet and is that currently allowed?
They could petition for it. Nothing is allowed.
So they could petition for it, however.
They could petition for rezoning and a land use classification, yes.
But it's not a permitted use, kind of like what we deal with some of the businesses and commercial, where that we've already.
The residential project, if it met all the lot restrictions, the development standards of the R4, it would be a residential use would be permitted in it. But the big gate, if you will, the entry point is the rezoning and the land use classification process, which gives us the highest scrutiny in reviewing it. We wouldn't even, technically, it's not a planned district. It's just a rezoning. And then anything allowed in it would then be reviewed as a quasi-judicial project, consistent with the LDRs, it's a given, but the rezoning process is the most critical.
My concern is, a 1-story house next to a 4-story multifamily house, that it is currently being, in the process, because this is an older area of the community. Is that allowed, or what is the distance from that 1-story house for them to build up to the 4 stories?
Conventional district like the R4 doesn't have little tricks like that in there, like the mixed-use districts sometimes do. For example, you can go above a certain height, but it increases your setback dimension. The R4 right now, the way it's written, would not have that.
So they would be allowed to build up to the 4 stories?
If the property were rezoned to R4, that's correct.
Okay. And so, but that is part of the future land use, and so it is not necessarily going to be zoned to R4. And now, if someone wants to make it into a duplex or an R3, is that something that is allowed if it's zoned R4, the future land use, so that it goes from R1, or is this currently all zoned at HDR?
It isn't. That's recommended.
And so my next question is that it's currently zoned mostly R1.
Or R2.
Yeah, R1, R2. Can they go from R1 to R2 if the future land use is R4?
R4 is zoning, so the future land use would be high-density residential. If it were high-density residential in R4, you could build townhomes underneath it as well.
Okay, so I'll see if I can get my question answered. Is that if its future land use is HDR or the new R4, and it is currently zoned as R1, can they get the R2 or the R3 zoned, or is it only from R1 to R4? Because that's our new future land use for that area.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. That is something that staff is confronted with frequently as people come in and ask what properties could be developed as.
Yeah.
First thing we do is we do look to the CRA plan if it's within the CRA area to see what the recommendation is. And that may be a strong recommendation from staff is you're either in compliance with it and staff would support it, or you're not in compliance with the CRA plan, staff may not support it. That's called interim. And that's something that we'll be working on during the audit too, is how is the interim period handled as the CRA plan is implemented.
And so that's I'm going to be voting against this because, if you can only go to R4 from R1 that is currently zoned, it doesn't.
No, just because the CRA plan recommends it does not mean it's in stone. It's a recommendation.
But this is just
that diagram is from the CRA plan, which is the recommended land use pattern, if you will.
Okay.
Now, we've put that into place to support some development concepts that we've been hearing over the years. Mm-hmm. For example, things that the CRA board or the staff has been working on. This would support it. In a perfect world, if someone came in with something very contrary to it, let's say someone came in and started selling land along Seacrest Boulevard for mixed-use development, we might say, let's slow down. That really isn't necessarily consistent with the vision of the CRA plan. That we may, if the commission supports it, and the CRA board supports it, we may need to go back and revisit the CRA plan. Perfectly.
Okay.
But just because you conflicted with the CRA plan is not necessarily in a major violation or...
Basically, so this is just allowing the possibility in the future, because of our LDRs have allowed it.
Yes.
This does not guarantee any sort of R4 being built.
Or mandated, correct.
Or mandated, okay. Thank you.
I don't even remember my question anymore. What I wanted to know is it possible to put a conditional type of understanding on this, that in order for someone to use the R4 zoning, am I saying that correctly? That it would have to be contiguous with something else that's already there. Like if there's already a 4-story building, they would only be able to build next to another 4-story building. It wouldn't be that there's a pocket, they've accumulated land, and now they're proposing to build a 4-story building that's in the middle of just a bunch of single residential family homes. Is it possible to set it up like that?
It wouldn't be our recommendation, because you'd be tying your hands. In implementing the CRA plan, you might butt heads a little bit. Might not have perfect compatibility of land uses over a short period. Over a longer period, the idea is you're going to have greater compatibility. So, for example, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. McGillicuddy, however you want to describe this hypothetical property owner, has a single-family home, whereas land around it has been intensifying. And even the land use classification recommended might be something more intense, like mixed use. So how long do you recognize the McGillicuddy's low intense and original antiquated use when you're trying to implement a redevelopment plan around it? So if you had something like that in place, you could have a single-family home of 25 feet high, and that would prevent you from implementing the plan where land might be assembled around it. Making sense?
Yes, you are. So
the CRA is experiencing this now as they try to assemble all the land on a block and a half area that we've been identifying as the cottage district, if you will. There's a couple holdouts, but they're still trying to acquire to square up the boundaries and prevent that incompatibility. But let's say worst case, we end up with a proposer that's got the ideal plan, and we don't move out that last piece of property, we will have to build around it. Hopefully the site plan will be designed to expand onto it someday when that person's price is right, an heir of the property decides to sell, and that mixed-use project, consistent with the redevelopment plan, gets expanded. But if you have something like that in place, it may prevent that from happening.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand the Mrs. McGillicuddy situation that you're referencing as well. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, for example, if we go back to the map, right? I wish I had a pointer so I could point to what I'm saying, but let's just say, for example, where the letters HDR stand, that is a full single-family residential area, and somebody accumulates a plot of land within it. How do we prevent that from happening, where they would just build a 4-story condo apartment or something in the middle of just a bunch of single families without it being contiguous with, maybe there were a lineup of where the purple meets the brown, and it could be,
you ultimately hold that power preventing
Right.
that through the rezoning review process.
Okay.
And our city attorney will probably tell you that you have more scrutiny in reviewing such an application. You do not have to approve such an application. In fact, the review criteria is both tangible and subjective and objective.
Right, but then we have situations where the developer or applicant has met all requirements, they are following our code. How do we deny them if we already have this in
Well,
place?
if they are following all that and they're passing all the criteria...
Right, how do you say
probably
no
won't
just
have a
because of
conflict.
discretion?
You probably won't have the conflict, and you wouldn't need it.
But if their positioning is off, but they're still following this land use or zoning designation that you put in
place. They might be consistent with the CRA plan, but you're saying there could be an incompatibility in there. And if that's a justified compatibility and not something that is really intended to be temporary and phased out, then the review criteria for the rezoning process, which has been on the books for a long, long time, would be used, that you could use to deny or support a project, a rezoning of a piece of property.
What is that road in between the purple and the brown there, and the yellow and the brown, the red and the brown? What is that road?
5th or 6th?
So currently, where it says HDR is our cottage district. And
That's correct.
Thank you.
all right, anything else from the board? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Gray,
Aye.
Commissioner Romulus,
Aye.
Commissioner Casello,
Gone. Aye.
4-0.
Mayor, you'll need to come back to Commissioner Casello to find his vote when he returns. For the record.
Can we move on to the next ordinance?
We can.
All right, please.
17024, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Ordinance 8938 by amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan for property commonly known as the Villages at East Ocean Avenue North and described here and owned by Arthur B. D. Almeida, changing the land use designation from local retail commercial to mixed use high, providing for conflict severability and an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Just a question and maybe a point of order. We've got items B through F. Can all of those be presented at one time and then?
Those can be presented at one time. They require separate public discussion and vote.
I'm okay presenting all at once. But if you're going on to a separate item, can you please just let us know which letter it is?
Sure.
And as to D, that needs to come off the table, D and F.
Oh,
So move.
Second.
all those in favor of removing item D and F off the table?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Items have been removed from the table.
Good evening again. My name is Bradley Miller of Miller Land Planning, and here representing Arthur and Francis Almeida on the Villages at East Ocean Avenue. And this does incorporate items 9B through 9F, I believe it is. I will do my best at breaking those apart as we go through the process here. I do want to point out we've got the Almeidas are here, as well as our entire consultant team of architect, engineer, traffic engineer, and landscape architect, if there's any further questions as we move ahead. This is a property you've got, I think I used a trailer version of the presentation 2 weeks ago. And this is a property that's located between Boynton Beach Blvd, and then it goes down to almost Southeast 2nd Avenue with Ocean Avenue through the middle on the west side of the FEC Railroad. This project has gone through the review and process of putting the CRA redevelopment plan together. We started this application about 2 years ago, not the actual application, but the process. And through that process of 2 years worth, we're down to tonight. So it's an exciting night for us. Through the CRA redevelopment plan process, the property essentially got broken into two different parcels. The north parcel, which goes from Boynton Beach Blvd to Ocean Avenue, and then the area that's south of Ocean Avenue that goes down about halfway down to Southeast 2nd Avenue. So because of that is why you have so many items on your agenda. There's a land use amendment, rezoning, and site plan for both the north and the south. And then there's abandonments of rights-of-way and alleys that run in both the north and the south, which are old paper alleys, if you will, that are there. There's no improvements in there. They're just matters of record that need to be cleaned up. The redevelopment plan for the north parcel designated this area as mixed-use high. Mike just went through some of that, and I'll try to keep the planning jargon out as much as possible. The mixed-use high allows densities of up to 100 units per acre and maximum building heights of 150 feet. The southern parcel is designated mixed-use medium, and that corresponds more with your town square property. It allows building heights up to 75 feet and density of, I think, 50 units an acre. So in our application, already misspoke. It is 50 units an acre with the density bonus program of the TOD. The star that's on the site there is where the train station is, in the center of the transit-oriented development allows for the density bonus of 62.5 units an acre. So I will start with the north parcel, which is going to be items B and D. The abandonment really covers both, so there's really nothing specific there other than those areas within the property itself that are being abandoned and encompassed by the project. We are requesting a land use amendment to go from local retail commercial to mixed use high for this north parcel. It follows the CRA redevelopment plan and recommendations. We're rezoning the property from C3 and C2 to mixed-use core. And then we're requesting the major site plan. The rest of the slide there gives you a breakdown of site areas and the square footages that are in the plan that you'll see here in a moment. The bottom part gives you a breakdown of the types of residential units that are going to be in this. This is a mixed-use project. We have both residential and we have commercial space as well. But I think from a residential standpoint, it really gives a great mix of residential units and kind of serves the market for that space. To help orient you here, I rotated the property so north is to the left-hand side with Boynton Beach Boulevard on the left side of the screen, and it runs down to Ocean Avenue, which is the right-hand side of the screen. 3rd Street is on the west side of the property, and then the FEC Railroad is on the east side at the top. Our access points, the dark arrow there is an access that comes off of 3rd Street that leads into our parking garage. We chose that access of 3rd Street rather than using the Boynton Beach Boulevard or Ocean Avenue corridors, which are much more pedestrian oriented, trying to leave that area where cars are crossing the pedestrian access ways as little as possible. The pink arrows are pedestrian connections from the garage that lead you out to 3rd Street, out to Boynton Beach Boulevard, and out to Ocean Avenue. So there's connections throughout the project to allow you to get to the property and then to be able to get from the property, whether you're a resident of the community or you're visiting as part of the public for the commercial space and the activities. Along the roadways, there's pedestrian access ways that are all connected into Boynton Beach Boulevard, 3rd Street, and Ocean. And then to break down some of the uses here, along the perimeter we have pedestrian zones. You heard that through the CRA redevelopment plan. The pedestrian zones are sidewalks and seating areas and retail space. In most of it, it's around 18.5 feet of space. And then in those areas, there's some plaza space. Along the east side of the property, we have a pathway and green space that runs along the railroad. It is fenced on the east side between the railroad right-of-way and the project for safety purposes, as well as heavily landscaped through there. It's a little over 17,000 square feet of area. There's going to be a paved pathway through there, walking area. We'll probably have the dog pickup stations, et cetera, and it connects Boynton Beach Boulevard to Ocean Avenue. The plazas we have one on each of the 3 roadways. The square footages are the plaza space that's been designated by our plans. The one on Boynton Beach Boulevard is around 1,350 square feet. Our main plaza for our entry, which you'll see here in a moment off of 3rd, is about 4,400 square feet, and a little over 1,750 square feet along Ocean Avenue. I'll touch on here in a moment. And then internal to the site for the residents themselves, there's I think our landscape architect gave it the tropical paradise, where it's a pool area and patio seating area that's part of the residential private space for the residents. For the trees, this is something your Planning and Development Board is good at pushing on, is having the roadways and these pedestrian walkways lined with shade trees. We have 79 trees that are required, of which 72% of those are shade trees along the walkways. The others are palm trees, which we have here at the corners, at the access points, which are help accent those plaza areas and the corners of the property, and just kind of break up the scheme. For the uses themselves, I'll go through this is our ground floor footprint of the building. The area in green is our lobby space. That's where the residents' lobby space will be there, the leasing office, the management office. And you can see that the main space is here off of 3rd, but there's also a corner lobby area here for the residents to come right in off of Boynton Beach Boulevard. The yellow is the residential units that are wrapping around the pool area. And apparently it takes 3 or 4 hits of the button for the next slide to go. This darker blue area is the recreational amenity package for the residents. It's the clubhouse, it's the card room, it's the cyber cafe, it's the spinning room, fitness area, all in that space. That's going to be a 2-story component. As part of the project, there'll be a great space for the residents to use. And it also fronts right on Boynton Beach Boulevard, which gives some glass space and activity out to Boynton Beach Boulevard. The commercial space is split between, it's just under 4,000 square feet of commercial space along Boynton Beach Boulevard, and then a little over 8,000 square feet that's down along Ocean Avenue. So we've split up that space. And then internally in gray is our parking garage. We have about 644 parking spaces within the garage.
Bradley, that commercial space on Boynton Beach Boulevard, is there on-street parking there?
There are 3 on-street parking spaces along Boynton Beach Boulevard here. And we have about a total of 10 or 11 spaces along 3rd Street that are on-street parallel spaces. One included is a handicap stall along that space. And there's also parallel parking spaces along Ocean Avenue. You get into the upper floors, and that's where the residential component expands. And again, the diversity and the types of units, from studios that are around 750 square feet up to 3-bedroom, 2-bath, all within the various floors of this building that wrap around the pool area, and as well as the garage, and overtop the commercial space along Ocean Avenue. As you step down through from Boynton Beach Boulevard to Ocean Avenue, it goes from 8 floors up here to 7 floors to 5 and then down to 3 on Ocean Avenue. Part of the CRA redevelopment plan was to keep the heights of buildings along Ocean Avenue lower. Juan Carcedo, our architect, did a fantastic job of, I'm going to steal his term, of a responsible design throughout this entire project of recognizing those criteria and the desires, the vision of the redevelopment plan and implementing it into the project. If you do those same breakdown and that step with the floors in elevation form, you got Boynton Beach Boulevard here where it's 8 floors high. It's about 85 feet to the roof deck and then about another 10 feet above that for these little architectural caps. And then 7 floors here, which is a mix of the parking garage as well as residential units around it. Residential units and 5 floors here, and then it steps down to 3 at the end towards Ocean Avenue. Down there, it's 35 feet in height at our tallest spot right along Ocean Avenue. The elevations here are looking at the one on the bottom is actually looking north from Ocean Avenue towards the building. And the area on the left-hand side that's encircled is our 35-foot area. This gray area across the bottom here is only 25 feet high. It's really 20 feet to the roof deck with a 5-foot parapet. So that's actually space, terrace space, where people, the residents that live on the second floor, can actually come out and use that outdoor space.
That commercial space on the first floor?
It is commercial space all along this first floor on the ground level, yes. And then once it steps back, again by CRA plan, we go up to 5 stories, which is about 63 feet. From a perspective standpoint, this is Boynton Beach Boulevard. We're looking southeast. This is 3rd Street. So this is the lobby area that I pointed out for the residents. The commercial space that's running along here. There's a little plaza area in here. The recreational amenity is on this side. We got 45 feet that comes up to this point, and then it steps back, and then it goes up another 4 stories. These units actually wrap around the corner. Pretty cool units. They have an outdoor terrace area that's out in that space. In fact, all of these, every unit has a patio, outdoor balcony of some form. And this perspective is actually looking the opposite direction, looking to the northwest. This is Ocean Avenue, the railroad track here. This is where that walkway would be, fenced and landscaped on that side. Again, this is the area, the commercial space along Ocean Avenue. That's the 35-foot component. Then it steps back to the taller stories here. One of the questions we had, I think these units are kind of pretty cool to point out. Those are lofts. They're 2 stories. But all of that is glass space. So your living areas on the first floor. Then you kind of have this open space for your bedroom space up above. I think those are pretty cool too. This area, staff did a great job at working on Juan's arm, getting it twisted to get this architectural feature. That's the garage space. And you can see how well it's architecturally treated all the way around.
Bradley, is that walkway, is that going to be lighted?
It will be lighted at a minimum with the smaller bollards of the pedestrian lights. The original design, we had some gates there thinking that maybe in the nighttime hours it gets gated off just for some security purposes. I think to open it up more to the public, the staff asked that we take those gates off, which we've done. But that's something that it would be lighted, and actually I think it's a great corridor back there.
Charlie, I have a question. That
Yep.
walkway, is it concrete? Is it a pathway? What is it?
Dave, is there a spec on it? Is it kind of the cushy?
Got to come up.
I'll repeat it back. It's a crushed shell kind of material.
Okay,
You're welcome to
that's
come
what
up
I wanted
if you
to know.
want to.
That's
Yeah.
fine. That's enough.
And then landscaped.
And the residents that are on the first floor, because I know the southern side of it is retail, but that eastern side, there are residents on the first floor, correct?
The commercial space, not a lot. There's a few units right up in here, but the commercial space goes back to here. This is garage space that covers that. I can go back to that first ground floor area, but there's very minimal on that first ground floor residents that face the tracks.
To the back. Do their units open out into the back in that region where there are residential units on the first floor?
Windows, no doors.
Okay, just making sure for security.
Yep.
That's why I ask if we're going to have a pathway that's open and not gated back there.
Sure.
Okay.
So at our first reading, a couple of questions, concerns came up from the commission that we tried to look into. Spent a good chunk of time with staff here today talking about those. And the two items here are the retail space along Boynton Beach Boulevard. I think there's a sentiment of some concern of the viability of that along there, as well as the size of the Ocean Avenue Plaza. We worked through some things after I turned in our PowerPoint to have mounted up, but I think the areas that we're talking about is this space here for the retail space and that viability, and then this plaza area and trying to increase on that. And through our discussions here, what we tossed around for some ideas is, and I'll let staff speak for themselves, but from our standpoint, our original plan actually had this not as straight retail space, but as live workspace, which is a quasi both. You have commercial space on the ground floor. I've got some pictures to show you, Mayor, of some other live work.
I heard there's a difference between live work and work live. Is that true?
I've heard that too. I think by City of Boynton Beach code, I don't think there's a differentiation. Okay. In some places there are, but it's all by definition.
Okay.
It's like R4 in Boynton Beach and R4 in Delray.
It's different everywhere.
It's different.
Bradley, I want you to stay right there on that ground floor. When I met with you all, I was in favor of these 79 trees and these palm trees you all call. But after the hurricane, I seen a lot of trees that was down. Okay, I'm just saying, is it mandatory that we got to put 79 in? Is it mandatory? What you all call palm trees? Are those coconut trees?
Are they sables? Now we're going to get the landscape architect up here.
Yeah, I can go along with the sables, but I seen coconut trees laying across the roads, and it's bothering me. I'm just saying.
Please state your name for the record.
Dave Bodker, landscape architect, 601 North Congress Avenue, Delray Beach, Florida. Along Boynton Beach Boulevard, we have cathedral live oaks as the shade trees, the same along 3rd as well as Ocean Avenue. The palm trees that we use to signify the entrance points and the corners and the plazas are Sylvester date palms. As far as coconut palms, if I recall, I don't think we have any on the plan. Within the interior swimming pool area, we have small Alexander palms, thin trunk palm trees. In the plaza off 3rd, there are some foxtail palms and a Canary Island date palm in that area as well. So the predominant palm here is Sylvester date palms.
My next question is, when we approve this, because I'm going to vote for it because I met with you all, how long will it take those trees that you all are planning to catch root? I'm just saying, because on Boynton Beach Boulevard, we had some that was over in the right-of-way that fell in the road. I'm just saying, are these the same plants?
I'm not aware of what fell in the road over there.
Well, go by there, you'll see some of them still out there. I'm just saying, but
live oaks are about the toughest tree that there is around here.
Okay.
And I did see some that fell over during this hurricane. I was shocked that I did. Wilma didn't knock any over, but they're the most highly recommended tree for use in hurricane areas because they are so strong.
You answered my question. Okay, thank you.
And it also has to do with the maintenance of the trees, that they are pruned before in June or July for the hurricane season.
selected this variety of oak tree, this cathedral live oak, because they're not a spreading live oak. They grow more vertical. So you won't get that big canopy that catches the wind like a sail.
Okay, thank you.
What's the maximum height of those?
They'll be installed at 18-foot height. They will grow to 35, 40 feet tall.
I had some more. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, I think you were asking for some examples of live-work units. These are just some exhibits for exhibits. Actually, this was a rendering of a project up in Lake Worth. Not sure where these are, but the idea is commercial space on the ground level, and then internally to that level, there's a staircase that leads up to a unit above. The way your city code reads now is that for those uses, for someone to take that space, they actually have to have a business tax receipt to operate a business on that ground level. So that was part of our discussions here this afternoon with staff. The bottom right slide is actually in Renaissance Commons, where there are some live-work units there now. There is a differentiation in your code between a suburban mixed use, which is Renaissance, and the mixed-use high that we're proposing. The types of uses that are allowed is any permitted use that's in the zoning district, any permitted commercial use is allowed into that commercial space. So the things that we, the types of uses that we kind of envision for that would be the artist, consultant, young professional starting a career, young architect, young lawyer, wanting a space. An artist could have their studio there, they could sell their paintings, etc. So there's still some commercial vibrancy along that. So that, in response to the concern that you brought up in first reading, our suggestion would be to convert that retail space to live work. We also talked about the plaza area, and as some of you remembered our original plan back 2 years ago, which is this one that shows a big, much larger plaza area, which is the light blue. And this is the plan that's before you tonight. Some of the reason that it's designed that way is because there's code provisions that want the buildings closer up to the road. So this little area, this little cutout that's there is 15 feet. If we go more than that, we have to go into a whole appeal process, and then the retail space shrinks that much more. Again, talking with staff, and I will let them chime in on this as well, but what we talked about to try to increase that plaza area and give a little more sense of receivership from the train station over Ocean Avenue would be to essentially just knock off that little leg of the U and continue that line of the plaza directly north. It increases it by like another 450 to 500 square feet. It still leaves a very viable depth to the commercial space, which is important. And we believe that that's really the emphasis of the commercial space. To have the activity and the vibrant users on Ocean Avenue. The live workspace on Boynton Beach Boulevard, I think, is a little more destination oriented. Commissioner Casello questioned the number of parking spaces, which always comes up with the retailers. So how many spaces do we have that's right there? This is much better connection. We got the parking garage right next to it, and I think it functions better. So our suggestion on that part would be to allow us through the permitting process just to knock off that leg, and it increases the plaza. We did get a laugh where this might be the first time where I'm asking for more public space and less commercial space, and they were actually challenging me on just the opposite. So that was good dialogue.
I had some, I don't know if I saw you had it in there, but can I get the numbers of parking spaces that you said, like 640 total in
I believe it's 644 in the garage.
and so there's, you said another three on?
There's 3 on Boynton Beach Boulevard, 11 on 3rd, and I believe it's 5 on Ocean.
Okay. And so can you break that down into how many of that is residents, how many is that guests of the residents, how many is that commercial?
By the actual numbers, no. But for the parking garage, it's essentially the first floor and a half is for the commercial space. Open to the public, anybody can use it. The residents will have a sticker, a decal, some designation for the upper floors. So if you get a resident that's parking in those lower floors overnight, management catches that and enforces them to park in a different area.
The next question regarding parking, is there, I know that there's sometimes Uber, Lyft, or delivery food drivers. Is there going to be a specific design space for 15 minutes or 30 minutes so that there's always that open space for that sort of deliveries? Or
a good question. I don't think we have an actual designated space. Let me see if I can get to the...
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have that slide there. Let me go back. There is an area right in front of our main lobby that would serve as kind of a pull-off space for that.
So for the FedEx,
use. Is that right?
The FedEx deliveries and sort of deal like that.
Yes.
So that it's more of a standing area, but not a parking area.
Correct.
Okay. And that also on the north side is kind of like with that walkway. Is there going to be video surveillance? Is there going to be someone at the front gate or front lobby door 24/7 for security?
There'll be security cameras, and the residential part of it most definitely will be secured. Whether there's 24/7 management there, we haven't gotten that far along.
And then I guess is, do you think that the retail there, any restaurants would have valet or no?
My personal side just came out. The response I wanted to say, gee, I really hope so, because that means there's a lot of activity there. And yeah, I think it could most definitely end up in a valet situation. That's kind of we're all kind of hoping for that growth and that activity to occur.
And if that's the case, could I guess the owner assign some of the residential spots for the valet? Or?
I think that there's going to be enough space in the garage that could be shuffled and
okay.
utilized. We're really anticipating especially with the train station being right next to us, the actual reduction in the demand of the car. Anybody's crystal ball, but I think it's a definite possibility for that to drop.
And then is the commercial also going to have the limitation similar to Costa Costa Marina Village, the hours from 12 to 6, no one can park in the public parking overnight?
I think that also would be a management thing.
Okay.
They're probably doing it because of issues that they've had. It's another garage. So I would anticipate that the management's going to have the same issues if it's open for that.
Okay.
So we'll have to watch that as it moves along, and be able to control it through management.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a concern, and I relate it to Las Ventanas, where the garage is actually in the back of the commercial spaces. Plenty of parking if you know how to get there. Is that going to be difficult to get to this garage for those commercial spaces on Ocean? That'd be one of my concerns.
I think part of the problem with Las Ventanas is signage to get to the garage itself.
Correct.
Where this one from 3rd Street there, you're going to be able to see the garage as you're there. With Las Ventanas, you got to drive into the project to find that parking area, or 1 Boynton, I think.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So I think design-wise, that was thought about. And then there's a direct corridor that leads from the parking garage. You come down to the ground level, and there's a corridor that leads you straight out to the commercial space on Ocean Avenue. So I think with signage, we'll be able to address that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll stop there. That's the north parcel, so that would be B, C, well, not C, C's the abandonment. I don't know if you want to handle that one initially. So that would be B and D, and then I can go into the southern parcel.
So I'm going to open it up to public now for any comments regarding the north parcel.
Cindy Falco Di Corrado, 316 Northwest 1st Avenue. We just had the workshop for the CRA, and we all kind of came up with that most of the community seemed to like the Mediterranean contemporary kind of look. Is this going to be, because it's in the same block, square, kind of, sort of, our downtown Boynton Beach, is it going to flow in the design, the style, the atmosphere, the feeling when you're walking back and forth to keep it still? I know that on the east side, they're going to go a little lower on the leverage of the height. And they did show us when we did the CRA meeting the recessed back, and it did feel good because there was a lot of open space towards the front. And I do realize this is coming off of Boynton Beach Boulevard, the highest point. But as long as down on the main street where we're doing the new which is over here, the new downtown area, will it be conducive? Will it look, will it fit, will it flow, so we don't look like we're becoming Miami Beach, where we have all kinds of different things happening, and it's, like Lincoln Avenue, mostly stores, even though I like Lincoln Avenue, but is it going to be conducive? Is it going to flow? Is it going to feel right when you walk down there as you're walking from one end of East Ocean down to the other end? Is there kind of continuity?
I'll have Juan Caicedo, the architect, address. I do just at the beginning. Juan created a very contemporary, modern design. Through the CRA redevelopment project, we were asked to change that design to. We were literally 2 weeks away from submitting in April of 2016, and we're asked to hold off to go through the redevelopment plan. Through that process, he redesigned the whole architectural style, the coastal village, which is what we were asked to do, and I'll let him touch on that architecture.
Good evening, Juan Caicedo, 14 Southeast 4th Street, Boca Raton, Florida. Actually, the name of the project is pretty much in keeping with what you're talking about. The whole idea was to create a village-like project. So it didn't lose the scale and the character of the streets, particularly on Ocean. On Ocean, and the scale and quaintness of the town that you have now is going to be maintained. I think this is actually a good addition to that scale. It respects the scale, and it steps back towards Boynton Beach Boulevard, where the project gets taller, but yet, again, the building is articulated, even in Boynton Beach Boulevard, to address the idea of keeping it a pedestrian-friendly environment.
Because this one here that I'm looking at, and that looks very contemporary to me. I don't see any of the architectural elements that we were discussing in the meeting with the archways and some little columns to kind of still keep it. And this looks really contemporary to me. Is this the rendition that you're submitting? That's what I was asking.
Yeah, this is the rendition that
is the one you're submitting.
Cindy, what you're referencing is Town Square, and that conversation has happened after this was designed.
Right. I realize that now, but I'm just saying because it kind of shifts kind of where we were going, I think, from what I'm an artist in a different perspective, and I like things that I love little pops of different things to make it interesting, but this is going to be a large building, and the building that I had seen and I realize it's after the fact, of the step back, and I didn't know where they were putting that. I think they were talking about that in the main area. That did not seem all encompassing, but with the square lines and all the squareness of this, it just doesn't feel conforming to the atmosphere that we had discussed. And it seems like it's going to be a little bit like the stepsister than part of. And I know you already just did the work.
I appreciate the comment. I think that, I think that the creation of a city, it's done by a variety of different architectural styles and moments. Particularly this building actually, it's very traditional in terms of the language that is used. It goes more into the coastal style because that's the direction that we got from staff, and I think it actually will fit well with a more Mediterranean character that you're proposing for Town Square. It's just a different approach to it.
Has a lot of squares. And I'm from Miami, and if you go downtown, where they had the downtown area, everything was square, and then they try to do the contemporary, and I just see lots of square. The bottom looks nice, but everything else looks pretty square to me. That's all. I just a little was baffled because I didn't know where we were discussing and the look and what we sat and had all these meetings, and many people came to those meetings, and it looks less coastal and more contemporary to me, but that's all I want to say. But thank you for your input, and I'm sure you worked very hard on creating a design, and I understand as an artist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Some questions that had come up at P&D, and I'm trying to multitask and grade papers, so maybe I missed it when you addressed them. What happened to former Commissioner Fitzpatrick's question about train access, since this is going to be right next to where the trains are, or the train station that in theory is coming in our lifetime? He had asked if there was going to be some adaptation to the plan to allow for better access from the Boynton Beach Blvd and railroad track side to allow for train access. If we're supposed to be pushing that we want this train station, then shouldn't we allow better access, if I'm understanding what he had discussed with you during the meeting? And has there been any change or what's going on with that to make that happen?
Want to go through all yours, or is that it?
Oh, no, that's never just it.
All right, why don't you go through yours, and then I'll respond to it.
Okay. The next one is, he had also suggested possibly that privately owned condo building on the corner of Ocean and I guess it's 3rd, that you all own 2 of the properties and 2 of the units, and there's still 2 others you're trying to obtain. He had suggested that possibly the city try and pick this up and buy your units and then make that into an open space so that there's enough green space. I mean, there's debate because someone sent me an article about the whole Houston situation, and we're all sitting here looking at Houston going, do we have enough green space? We also know that the ordinance, isn't there an ordinance or a code that says we have to have 2.5 acres for every 1,000 people? And, you know, shouldn't that be in the same area where the people are? And we're going to need that green space. And does it make sense for the city or the CRA to pick up those units from you and then wait out the other people to eventually sell and then make that into a pocket park or a small park somewhere along the way that would fit in nice with your unit, but then that takes the responsibility away from you guys. And I know that's been floating back and forth between people and the commissioners, but maybe that's something you guys want to explore as well. My next thing is, what's the status on the type of paint? Are we doing solar on the rooftops? Are we doing graphene paint or some kind of reflective paint, which I had brought up with you after P&D? You know, so we if we're supposed to be this great green city, you know, I'm the one who's always pushing that at P&D. So, yeah, thank you for listening to me on the trees. But, you know, what are we doing paint-wise? What are we doing color-wise? Are we using reflective paints? Are we using the new graphene paints that have just been invented that will, you know, bounce back and keep more heat out? Are we doing solar panels on the rooftop? What about our charger units for the electric cars that I had brought up, because there were not any on that original plan, and you were going to look at putting some on the plans. Because I think this is a great plan, and I'm not trying to argue this in any way. You know, I say we go forward with this, but I want to see what we need to do to make this happen and be functional for our future. And then the last thing is, I had mentioned before, I didn't think there was enough handicap parking, especially on, I know we're addressing the north parcel, but overall, there's not enough handicap parking, judging by, the retirement status of the bulk of the population that tends to live here in Florida. I think you need more handicap spacing. We do have an elderly population here in Florida, and I think a significant amount of these properties are going to be picked up by elderly people who can afford the kind of price tag that's going to come with these, and they're going to need handicap spaces, and I don't think we have enough. So I'm done now.
Let me maybe address them individually. I'll have Juan speak about the materials, paint colors, solar, et cetera. But for the handicap parking spaces, that's a federally regulated requirement, which we comply with. Do we need more? How many more? And you don't know, which is what. So our design is complying with those regulations. And it does include a handicap space that's a parallel space along 3rd Street. So I think we've met that requirement. The condo building and the pocket park, we've discussed that ourselves.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of semantics to go through to get to what Mr. Fitzpatrick was suggesting. When there's 2 other property owners in addition to the Dalmadas to deal with the city, whether the CRA, we're open for discussions on that property. The train access, the train access is across the railroad tracks at the pedestrian crossings that just got put in at Ocean Avenue and Boynton Beach Boulevard, where it's safe. You don't want people going from the walkway path midway through that block. Someone died in Delray Beach doing that, and the FEC put up fences along their right-of-way to screen it off. It's an unsafe condition to have it anywhere other than the pedestrian crossings that have just been improved. So if we're trying to create a pedestrian environment, walking half a block from this project down to Ocean or up to Boynton Beach Boulevard into the train station, if you can't handle that, then it's probably not the right place for you to be living. But I think for the population that this is going to, that we're figuring it's going to be attractive to, which is going to be an active community, walking that half block is most definitely a viable thing.
And can I ask a question? Will the parking garage side that faces the tracks, will that be completely closed off so there's no way for people to walk from the parking garage and try and walk across the tracks?
It's enclosed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The pedestrian exit from the parking garage is out to 3rd Street or down to Ocean or up to Boynton Beach Boulevard.
Okay.
Is that covered from the parking garage to the Ocean Avenue?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Juan, you want to address the paint, solar panels, and the charging units?
Again, Juan Caicedo, 14 Southeast 4th Street. We haven't really picked the specs on the paint material, but I mean the building colors are pretty light. The building is pretty much a white building, so it's highly reflective. The metal roofs are...
Well, can I just jump in and ask, are you going to specifically use reflective paint, or are you just using a regular white paint?
Well, we haven't spec'd the paint, but if it is a highly reflective paint, it works with the building, we'll certainly look into it. As far as the roof is concerned, we normally spec a white type of roof, which is, again, highly reflective roof. It's a single-ply roof, which is a pretty good roofing system. And in addition to that, where we have the architectural towers, where they have metal roofs, those are aluminum roofs, which, in terms of heat gain, is probably the best type of roofing that you can have. In regards to being energy efficient, and I was actually part of I was here when the city official was presenting something about the incentives for the city energy program. And the fact of the matter is actually the building code is in fact changing again as of December of this year or January of next year, and is addressing even more in a more stringent way the energy consumption in buildings. So as much as we are having to address the code today, which is pretty strict, it's going to be even more strict starting in 2018.
So will you be meeting that code, or will you be meeting
absolutely.
the current?
We have to, by the time we apply for building permit, we'll have to meet the next building code. I don't work that fast. Anyway, so what was another question?
Solar panels on the roof.
In terms of every project that we have done that has residential in it or commercial for that matter, the market is really calling for these chargers to be installed. So even though we don't have them in the plans, more than likely we're going to have more than one charger installed in this thing because people are buying electric cars and they want to come in and be able to charge their vehicles. So that will be a market-driven response, but it is in fact going to be a need because there's a lot of the residents that are going to be living in this type of building that would require that to be part of their amenity package. In terms of the solar panels, we haven't looked at solar panels yet, but certainly again is an option that could be studied. It is to the benefit of the developers of the project to save energy and to bring the buildings into some edge in terms of the market. So solar panels could be an option as well. I can't assure you that we're going to be installing them because I don't really even know how much room we need for the roofs to handle enough solar panels to power this building. But some areas, maybe some site lighting could be addressed with solar panels, and I'm just thinking in some ideas, but we haven't really gone into that level of detail yet.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
One, I have a question that in conjunction with Town Square project we've been talking about and how we're going to power it and what we're going to do here. Would your village be tied into that, potentially tied in that, and eliminate that need for solar panels on roofs and all the bells and whistles that go with that?
I think you may be referring to the chiller.
The chiller?
And that came up through the review process.
Right.
We're certainly, the same way as the solar, it would only benefit the project to be participant in that program. We haven't really sat down with staff to know what those details are, but we're certainly willing to plug that in, yes. Sure. And I think I think Colin, as he was putting that together, was considering Town Square, our project, as part of that through our discussions. So.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
While on the topic, are there any design changes or anything that you need to create in terms of infrastructure to be able to work along with that system, that energy system, in the event that when it comes? Because I think your project might be built before it's completed.
I would be crazy to even go anywhere close to that question. I have no idea what the infrastructure. So.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We will need to have more input from the staff and whatever is being designed to provide that to our engineers so that they can actually work accordingly. Hopefully that system will be in place by the time we're doing our building. I mean, we need to do the construction documents, we need to go through the permitting process. That will take some time. I don't know what's the schedule in terms of opening that plant, but certainly that will be, I think, a benefit for the project and a benefit for the town as well. If you're having a central chiller plant,
right,
it would be great for the project.
And I believe it's that plant will either be built concurrently or immediately after. Go ahead and come up and call in. Yes, please. Thank you. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page about this.
We have not met with them. What happened was we were getting a meeting set up, and then we had a little storm come through and messed up our whole schedule.
Oh, yeah,
so we're going to
one.
try to get with them in the next week. Yeah, Irma just kind of messed us up a little bit, but we're going to be hopefully getting with them next week and getting with their engineers. And yes, we would meet their schedule. We have it. We're building into the plan right now. We met today actually on on the schedule and looking at how to get it done, so we can provide it to them if they're interested. And they have said they're interested, so we just got to pull the two teams together, but they need this approval first, so now they can move forward in the design.
That's
This
understood. I
comes
just want to
first.
make sure we're all on the same page, whereas if we're going to create, I think
Right.
we already allocated about 300 or 200,000 or
Right, we
600,000,
did.
however much it was, towards that project. I would want where, these buildings and these construction projects coming along are able to benefit off of that
Absolutely.
project.
They'll benefit and they'll save money, and
Good.
it's good for the environment. So.
Bravo.
I just have one more quick question, if I may. If this goes through tonight, passes, when do you expect like a shovel in the ground? When would you expect groundbreaking? Best case scenario.
Francis has the shovel in the car. We've been working on it for 2 years, so I just need to get it done.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
This might be more of a question for Colin, but if the city entered into an agreement with regards to that new power system for properties outside of town squares such as yours, how do we ensure that the cost savings go to the residents, the consumers, as opposed to simply defraying the costs of the building or the commercial? Like, how language in an agreement that makes sure that savings is passed on to the actual residents to lower their electric bills? And
Right. There's several ways to do it. In rental units, it's hard to say because usually it depends on how they do it. When you do residential units, you can do it two ways. One is it can be a single bill to the owner of the entire complex, and they just put it into their rent, and that costs. The other way to do it is where they use actual sub-meters in their building, so every customer pays for their part, which means they would realize that savings. That's what we work out when we go to have a contract signed with a private. And we have multiple residential units that we're looking at, so this is one of them, and we would negotiate that. That's actually what we're doing right now, is building that rate structure and building that plan, so when we go to them we can say, here's what it works, here's how it saves, and the idea is to bring a cost to them that's a little bit less than what it would cost them if they had their own systems and paying for their own power and all that. So the idea is to give them a little bit better deal. And again, it's a little greener system to the environment. The much more efficient way to cool buildings is with the central energy plant. So we're working on that. I wish I had better answers, but that's what we're working on right now. We'll have it ready for you in a month or so.
okay.
So in summary, on the north parcel, we're asking for your approval of the land use change, the rezoning, the major site plan. There are conditions with the site plan that we're in agreement with the staff report, and then we had the two changes, if that's something that you want to entertain, with converting the retail space along Boynton Beach Boulevard to live work, which would require a condition, and as well as the modification to expand the plaza area on Ocean Avenue would also require a condition of approval. So unless there's any other questions, we ask for your support.
Jim, do we need a motion to ask for those conditions of approval?
Well, first we have, and I've already read Ordinance 17024. So to deal just with the north, we'll do that item. Then I need to read B2 and D. There's nothing to read on D, it's just the site plan. So if you would first take Ordinance 17024.
I'm sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing you. So
If you could just take Ordinance 17024. I've already read the title to that.
Okay. So we're going on, so I have a motion to approve proposed Ordinance 17-024, amending the future land use from local retail commercial to mixed-use high. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Romulus?
Aye.
Commissioner Casello?
Yes.
Mayor Grant?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz?
Yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
Okay, 17025, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Ordinance 02013 to rezone a parcel of land described herein and commonly referred to as the Villages at East Ocean Avenue North from neighborhood commercial C2 and community commercial C3 to mixed-use core with maximum density of 80 dwelling units per acre, MUC, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date.
May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor states, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Cassello,
Yes.
Mayor Grant,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz,
Yes.
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
and Commissioner Romulus.
Aye.
The vote is 5-0.
Okay, and if you would jump to item D, which is the approval of the site plan modification for the north.
All right.
So move.
Is that something we have to take off the table, or?
No,
It's already off.
It's already off the table, but I would like to put those two conditional requests of adding the extra plaza space of the 400 square feet and adding the live work on the retail option along Boynton Beach Boulevard.
I'll second that motion with those conditions of approval.
If I may interrupt
Yes,
respectfully,
absolutely.
just so the commission knows, staff does support, and we see in compliance what the applicant had talked about on Ocean Avenue, expanding eastward the plaza. Yes, that's consistent with the regulations as we can interpret them. However, on Boynton Beach Boulevard, we don't see a live work unit in compliance with the commercial requirement for Boynton Beach Boulevard. Just so you know that. So what does that require? Some type of relief, which staff wouldn't recommend, or some amendment to the regulations, which can be done if that's what you prefer. It may be challenging to write it in such a way that doesn't have such a ripple effect that really deteriorates the vision on those main corridors downtown. We'd have to look at it, but something is possibly, could be written for the project.
Yeah.
Michael, tell me the difference, what it is if somebody's working downstairs, has a commercial space downstairs and lives above it. Why is that such a big deal?
I think the best way to answer that question, and I can elaborate, the applicant had talked about a destination type use, whereas rather than, you're going to go there, and if your account is down there, you know where he tells you to park, you know where the resources are. That might be the case, but it certainly doesn't contribute to a destination, an area that we want down the core of the downtown to be a place where people want to go. They want to walk the corridors. They want to window shop. They want to see things. They want to see people outside. There's going to be a lot of traffic along Boynton Beach Boulevard entering into the downtown. So there's a lot of visibility. It isn't as if people know where to park. Of course, we know that's a key issue. And it's good to have some teaser parking. And you'll be able to see more parking along the side street, which the mayor wisely asked about. But what we want people to be outside. We want people to be active. A live-work unit is going to be very small, a little more passive, if you will, and not an active use. You're not going to have a small, vibrant cafe going on there. One person's not going to operate that. And you've got restrictions in live-work purposes for regulating the area, the size, the unit, the square footage, parking, and so forth. So it's not the vision, if you will.
Well, my experience here, and if history says anything, Las Ventanas, those empty storefronts, okay? No parking there to get to those, unless you know it's around the back. Casa Costa, right across the street here, same. Both failures, storefronts out there in the main street like that. Failures. We're setting this building up commercial. I think we're setting up for failure with only 3 parking spaces in the actual front of the stores. My experience with people that want to stop at a retail, they want to park right in the front door. That's the history of people with automobiles. They're not going to park around the corner or find the entrance to that garage, then walk to that commercial space. I think this space would be better utilized in a work living type setting. That's my personal opinion.
And my interpretation is that, with retail, you're asking someone to get almost minimum wage to man the cashier. With the live work, you can have the higher end professions use that office space or whatever store frontage space as well. And so, not to say that this is going to be for all of the places on Boynton Beach Boulevard, because we do have a lot of commercial locations on Boynton Beach Boulevard that are now moving into mixed use. But I am moving forward to saying, okay, we've done some examples with Casa Costa, Marina Village, and now Boynton, or One Boynton. So I'm looking forward to doing a little bit different than what we've done before, just to see how this works, and then we can make a better adjustment on the future than rather not seeing how this will work.
I hate to make it sound like an experiment, like let's see how this works. In my personal opinion, I believe this will work. And if you don't mind, could you please bring up the slide where we have where that's shown the original proposal versus the, I don't know if that's the same slide I'm talking about that I'm thinking about. That way, it's visually seen by everyone what we're discussing here.
For the plaza space or the retail?
No, the retail space on Boynton Beach Boulevard.
Yeah.
Right there. So my main concern the first time I saw this, what came up to me is that those are the train tracks right there at that diagonal northern or eastern portion of that map. That is the, yes, thank you. That is the railroad track. And there, where that green line is right there above the word Boynton Beach Boulevard, that is a median that is in the way. Now, Mike, I understand what you're going for in terms of retail and coffee shops and whatnot, but who in their right mind is going to stop there by a railroad track with a median in the middle of the road to stop and get coffee where there's only 3 parallel parking spots right there? It's almost impossible to think that this will work and that it will feasibly have a viability for any business owner to put their business there and think that it will work. I don't see it. I can't. Normally, I'm on your side. I like staff. I like what you guys push for and what we try to make sure our developers comply with what we have to say. But this is one of the things where I have to differ on the opinion, and it doesn't work for me. I would prefer live work. If anything, I would even go to the extreme of saying I would prefer residential altogether, because I just don't see that working as a retail component. But I would be willing to at least be mid-level or meet you in the middle and say live work. So I guess we may agree to disagree on that.
Well, sure. And what I do always want to make sure you understand is the staff's rationale.
Yep.
Right, and I understand. You've explained it. Yeah.
And one thing I want to assure you is that staff is trying to be visionaries. We're seeing down the road. We also we see the mistakes that have been made.
Yes.
And you'll see in our new regulations, particularly the pedestrian zone concepts within our overlay regulations, it's widening the pedestrian area. One of the deficiencies on Las Ventanas, the promenade, Las Ventanas, Casa Costa, is not enough pedestrian space and parking. So we want parking to be visible. We want wider streetscapes where there is areas to live and breathe and to have people pass by, have shops that can operate. Also the future. We don't want to plan for the past density intensity of downtown. We're planning for the future. Think about if you actually had a train stop there. Think about Del Rey. We go down Atlantic Avenue, and one of the most vibrant areas is City Oyster and the restaurant across the street. The railroad tracks are right there. And it's very difficult to find convenient parking. You hear Del Rey talk about the parking problems, considering parking meters, going through the same life cycle of vibrant downtowns. We want to get there. We want to have that type of problem. We want to have people, we want to have places where people want to go. I understand what you're saying. I don't want us to base it on those past mistakes. We have already designed based upon some of those past mistakes and also combining with the future. But staff will write the regulations to try and walk that middle ground. If this is what you want on this property, we will write the regulations that accommodate it, that perhaps prevent a real destruction, if you will, or declining of the vision downtown to have commercial on the primary streets.
And I guess...
So I hear you, and I agree completely. But when you're talking intensity and pedestrian traffic, I envision that, and just like you said, looking towards the future and not creating this plan or creating this project with the past in mind, but with the future at hand. I envision Ocean Avenue being that hub, being that part where people get off the train tracks, they go to Ocean to visit a great coffee shop, or they go to Ocean to see the window shopping and experience that. Boynton Beach Boulevard, regardless of how far we widen it and do that, it will still be at least a 35 mile per hour, if not more, road. It's very hard to get somebody to stop there and see window shop. So I think this is where we differ in opinion, but I would rather see that Boynton Beach area be either live, work, or again, go to the extreme of making it residential. That's my opinion.
Vice Mayor?
Does this set any precedent for future development up and down Boynton Beach Boulevard that they could request to not to put commercial and put these live work units?
I can't hear.
It comes down to how the ultimate regulations are revised.
But
that's what staff needs to look at.
It would be difficult for you to write a regulation for, one block west of the train tracks or just this property, or so.
It could be challenging, yes, and we're reviewing Town Square now through this comprehensive process, and we're applying those same types of standards. In fact, we're asking for retail and plaza space on Ocean Avenue, similar to what we were talking about here, and retail presence on Boynton Beach Boulevard.
I would argue in terms of regulation that our regulation remains the same, that where we require mixed use and where we require retail and whatnot, that still stays in place. We don't change regulations. We don't amend the language. This is simply a conditional agreement with this particular developer, because I believe that this part it really doesn't apply here. I don't think you can say the cookie, you can't say that the one shape fits all or one size fits all, and this project is kind of the exemplary of that.
The current regulations write commercial presence on arterial roadways, which are primarily Boynton Beach Boulevard and Federal, and Ocean Avenue. So those three corridors is very specific in calling out commercial uses.
So I would still say keep that in place, and we just put a conditional agreement on this one. Are you saying that that's not right to do?
It would be in conflict with the regulations that you have adopted.
Okay, that's what conditional agreements are for, correct?
That might be a developer's agreement, but that's not where we're at today.
Okay, I got it.
Bradley?
Can I chime in?
Yeah. I have a question when you're done.
Okay.
Can you please talk up, everybody? I'm sitting down here in a cheap seat. It's hard to hear.
Well, in the town square design, please don't put glass over top of the
Right, yeah, that would be smart.
In the code for live work, and this provision that we're talking about of having commercial on the ground level, it says commercial space. In the live work regulations, there's two sections of it. There's one for the suburban mixed use with like Renaissance Commons, and it actually lists uses that can be allowed there. They're all commercial uses. In the mixed use urban area, what we're talking about, it just says any permitted use in the zoning district. So you could still have retail there. You could still have a artist studio that has vibrant pictures in the window that they're selling their goods. You could have an architect there that has a studio downstairs and office space. It's I personally, I was playing zoning director from my office a few blocks away this afternoon with Mike on the phone. Personally, I think the regulations that are in place, that we comply with it. It's as live work. Commercial on the ground floor, it's going to be there. The regulations are there that require someone to have a business tax receipt to be able to go into that unit. So it may not be the cafe, it may not be the vibrancy of the activity that's envisioned. Maybe it will. But it's like any other shopping center. You don't know what use is going into that bay until that market comes along. We think the live work kind of satisfies a little bit of the both.
And Bradley, real quick, if I think in discussions and when I spoke to you guys, I said, I didn't have any strong feelings one way or another, but I've certainly thought longer and harder on it and kind of informed some. if you go commercial and it doesn't work out, that could easily be converted into live work. But if you do live work by design, you know, the odds are it will never become commercial. So is it not possible to do the commercial, see whether it works? My big concern is that even though Boynton Beach Boulevard will never be what we envision Ocean Avenue to be, it's still supposed to be a commercial roadway. And, you know, with regards to, you know, the parking and all that stuff, that's, you know, there's not enough parking next to any given store unless there's a parking lot. So I'm not overly concerned about that. The goal is to make people walk down there. My concern and my preference would just be to let the commercial either work or not work, and then, you know, give you permission if it doesn't work to go with live work. But I worry that we are setting a precedent that most people would see greater benefit from a developer standpoint to putting these live work units in, because that appeals to professionals and all that. But it you know, I could see a whole swath of East Boynton Beach Boulevard around that area now not becoming true commercial, and with Ocean One going in across the street and the retail fronting Federal, you know, it's a stone's throw from that. So the same argument could have been made by them that, you know, retail is never going to work on the front of Federal, if we're saying it's never going to work on the front of Boynton Beach. I like I said, I didn't have any strong feelings about it. I live in a live work unit in Renaissance Commons. I love living in Renaissance Commons and those townhouses, but the live work aspect is a miserable failure in Renaissance. Maybe because it's further back from a main road. It's a residential road, so I recognize that. But personally, my preference would be, and I won't vote against the whole project over this, but I would prefer it to give commercial a shot, and akin to what you know, staff has said, that some of the failures in the past, you know, there's a difference between this part of the building, which will be adjacent to the pedestrian Ocean Avenue, and Casa Costa, which really isn't adjacent to any pedestrian-friendly aspect beyond the marina confines. So I'd personally rather see it be commercial, and if it doesn't work, then convert it. I think that, you know, it's a gamble. Anything's a gamble, but I think that a lot of value's been cooked into this property by virtue of the consolidated plan and some of the decisions we've already made and are about to make. I'd like to see the developer take this risk, which I think is minimal because of the scope or the size of the live work / commercial area. That's just my personal opinion. I'd rather like to see it work, because I feel like it sets a precedent. It could turn Boynton Beach in that area into a live work residence. It's supposed to be commercial.
I felt him hovering.
Yeah.
Andrew Mack, Director of Development. I think I would concur with Commissioner Katz. I think that loud and clear, I think flexibility is kind of the word that you're looking for. And at this point in the second reading, I think that proving it with the commercial and then allowing for future flexibility would be the way to go. I don't think that we should just come out of the box with the live work, and maybe what we do is we do look at the live work during the audit, and at that point we could provide flexibility. And if the developer at that point down the road says, hey, this just isn't viable, or it's not working, we start going to the retailers or the different commercial aspects and they're not viable, then they could come through and we could have the regulations, which would come back to you as part of the audit review process, and they could amend the plan. Probably would be an administrative section at that point if that's the way it worked out.
So I'm going to talk. So you're saying make it on the developer's option?
What I'm saying is if you approve it with the commercial as is, and then directing staff to review as a part of the audit, or in some future the live work, which could provide flexibility down the road.
For me,
but again, that would be something that you would have come before you. That, you know, we don't want to impede the whole process for the mixed use downtown to open it up where we can do live work everywhere. So we want to have a balance on that as well.
You know, for me is that you're saying that, you know, if live work brings higher paying commercial location, you know, jobs and locations to Boynton Beach, I don't see the problem. Retail does not have high paying jobs. That's
understood.
And so that's kind of why, you know, I'll have no problem making it optional to the developer whether they want live work or commercial. But I definitely want not to be any impediments on the city's behalf for them to go live, work, if they feel that that's the best option for the market. Commissioner McCray.
Thank you. My take is that, first of all, we have been beating this around the bush for years and years. We said that we wanted to be a commercial hub. I'm in favor of it being a commercial hub. I'm not in favor of, going with this workforce, not now. I'm just saying we need to stick to what our plans were and continue to stay on that path. That's the way I see it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just, recapping, this is quite literally the first building on Boynton Beach Boulevard, and to deviate on speculation, I'll deviate instantly if it becomes clear that they're not viable. But just to, any developer who comes up here could make the exact same argument, and the more that do, it creates this kind of critical mass where once enough buildings don't conform or don't want to conform to that commercial, nobody will want to conform to it. You've got to get commercial space in the ground to perpetuate itself. I'm open to allowing in the future the change, but again, I think that the bottom line is through the consolidated plan and through various other accommodations we've made, we've more than been generous with regards to the project as a whole and its scope and its potential value. If it's not abandoning Boynton Beach Boulevard as a commercial roadway, but it's a telling sign to future development that the first piece of development we put on there is not going to be what we intended it to be. I'd rather wait personally and see it not work than to speculate it won't work and never get the chance to see.
All right. I'm going to request file comments, and then I'll entertain a motion for the conditional. Yes, Commissioner Romulus.
Right. My disagreement with that comment is the fact that we're saying that to a developer and to their potential lessees or renters that we are willing to let them fail, then come back and reconsider the notion. Government tends to move way slower than business tends to move. And if we're going to ask somebody to move in, let their business fail before we go back and change the terms of the agreement, I don't agree with that. And I don't feel like that is for us as a city that's trying to say that we want to create a business hub here, that we want to see you fail first before we allow something else come in that spot. So I can't, in good conscience, agree with that. I would rather, again, put the option in the hand of the developers because they understand the market, they understand what's going on here, and they understand the viability of what their project will look like and what will work. Again, this is a precarious location to be in where they're right next to the railroad tracks. Of course, in agreement with Commissioner Katz's or Vice Mayor Katz's comments, we don't want Boynton Beach Boulevard to become a Wild West where people do what they want. But again, I think there are certain conditions that need to be considered here, and this is one of these situations where you have a location that's kind of out of the way, that's by median, that's next to a railroad track. It's kind of hard to say that we can expect to have something viable that can be built right there, or if it's not viable, let it fail, then we go back and fix it. That's not who we are as a city. That's not what we're trying to attract here in terms of business ownership, and I don't believe that that's the right message that we need to be sending to the community. So I would rather start with the live work, and that's what I'm going to be voting for.
I'll rephrase my comment.
Comments, yep.
I'll rephrase my comment. I believe it will be successful. I'm not saying I think it's going to fail and then let it fail and convert it. I think that Boynton Beach Boulevard is supposed to be and will be a successful commercial roadway. So, again, I'm saying to the people who question its viability, I say give it a chance, and if not, then that. But my personal opinion is that it will be successful. It will not fail. And so to that effect, I'm not stating build something and let it fail and then go to plan B. I don't expect to get to a plan B. So just to clarify, I'm not saying build something and let it fail, and that doesn't sound very efficient or productive, but I think it will be successful. With regards to the train tracks, every business up and down the train tracks, whether you're talking about east to west on Atlantic or even now running north to south on some of those side streets, I don't know if the proximity to the train tracks, it cuts right through all of our downtown, so I don't know if that's necessarily a hindrance to business. Right now, there's successful businesses a stone's throw from the train tracks on the east side. Hurricane Alley has been there for 21 years. The train tracks haven't really scared anybody off. I know it's maybe an extra 100 yards or 50 yards away, but I won't beat a dead horse. I just think I'd rather commit to the plan as we set forth through the months and years of the consolidated plan, and if it does not work, then go to a plan B. But plan Bs are only supposed to occur when a plan A has not been successful. That's kind of just my piece.
I have a couple quick, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just
so I'm
have
going to
one
let
question.
Commissioner Casello go first, and then.
What kind of cost would you incur that if you had it, if you made it commercial, then you had to go, then you had the opportunity to go to a live work? What kind of cost would that be? And is it structurally doable once it's up?
I don't have an actual number, but it is structurally doable. Anything is doable. It's just difficult to do once the building is complete, to go and try to convert a space that is retail and connect to a living space on the second floor. But it is doable. I mean, anything is doable.
Anything's doable. Okay, in just my closing remark, I agree with Commissioner Romulus and her how she analyzed that with the parking, the train station, the medium in the middle of the road, the proximity to the tracks, and I would agree that we're setting it. I believe it will not be successful as a commercial venue. That's my personal opinion. I understand what Commissioner Katz is also saying. But I think the percentages for it to be successful would be to go with the work-living type situation.
Ms. Ramos, you had a final question?
Yes, final question, promise. In terms of conversion, if we started as a live work, and let's just say that one of the units, particularly on the northeast and Boynton Beach side, let's say that they wanted to have the bottom unit be a Starbucks, is that possible if it started as a live work to potentially convert to a more retail or open use? Yes, anything's just, I want to know. Is it not allowed? Is that hindered by the city's code? I just stole a zoning director hat again. I think the uses that are there, the way it's described, is you can't have uses that might be a nuisance, that might be hazardous to the residential part of it. There's a whole bunch of other qualifiers in there. Starbucks with the equipment and the hoods, I don't know. I'd probably leave that up to these two. I guess my perspective of it is of the whole issue here of if you could give us the option of letting us move forward with the option of give us some time to market while the project's being designed. Once it's designed, anything can be done, but it's much more difficult to do it kind of after the fact than before. So if there's a way that we could do it and actually do it administratively to convert that space one way or the other, whether it's commercial to live work or vice versa, and kind of let us go kind of test the market with that development option, that might be the best way. We were talking before, we're just trying to make everybody happy here with some way, and the live work seemed to do it because it's still commercial space on the ground level. It just may not be lots of bodies sitting out on the sidewalk having coffee or dinner. Personally, I think that's where Ocean Avenue comes into play.
Craig, final comments?
Thank you. You know, I don't know when we're going to get serious about what we're telling developers what we want here in Boynton. We've been telling people years and years that we want to build a viable downtown. Now we have somebody who wants to take a chance with us. Not we telling them what they need to do. I'm just saying, you know, we need to just stop playing games. Let them build what they said that they're going to build. If it don't work, then we come back. I'm just saying we have somebody who wants to invest money downtown, and now we tell them you can invest, but this is what we want you to do. I'm just saying stop playing games. We already have buildings and businesses already downtown. That's viable. That's working. Bradley, your building is downtown. Ace Hardware is downtown. Buzz Chicken is downtown. I'm just saying either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. This is all I'm saying, you know, and we can sit up for all night and keep talking about workforce this and workforce that, you know, either give them our blessings or just tell them we don't want to do the project.
Okay. Just one quick thing. Bradley, how would deliveries, if this was commercial, how would the deliveries get to these buildings?
For that particular space, the deliveries is actually down in here where there's a kind of a loading area, the dumpsters and that. So if there's a delivery, it would park there and come up the sidewalk.
So they'd park halfway down 3rd Street, around the corner, and then go down?
They could, if there's a parking space that's available.
That doesn't sound practical to me.
It's
All right, I'd like to entertain the motion regarding the option for live work along the commercial aspect of Boynton Beach Boulevard.
So moved.
Huh? No. That was for I think No. Okay, so Commissioner Casello first. Commissioner Romulus, are you seconding?
I'm seconding with the conditions of approval as stated.
Okay.
So are we voting on this individual condition?
This individual condition to...
I don't want to vote the whole project.
Correct. This is item D for this item of individual.
Does that include the modification to the plaza as well?
No, we'll have that separate.
Okay.
So all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2 of conditional of the developer's option for live work along commercial of Boynton Beach Boulevard. The second condition of approval is allowing the extra open area along Ocean Avenue. Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And now may I have a motion to approve the final site plan modification for the north side.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All right, halfway done.
Intermission, go for your popcorn.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break? It's been 3 hours.
I don't. Let's keep rolling.
All right, well, I'm going to take a stand break then.
Okay, ordinance 17027, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Ordinance 8938 by amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan for property commonly known as the Villages at East Ocean Avenue, South, and described herein, owned by Arthur B. D'Almeida, changing the land use designation from local retail commercial to mixed-use medium, providing for conflict severability and an effective date. While you're getting ready, why don't I read the second ordinance that goes with that? Ordinance 17028, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Ordinance 02013 to rezone a parcel of land described herein and commonly referred to as the Villages at East Ocean Avenue South from neighborhood commercial C2 to mixed use 2 with maximum density of 40 dwelling units per acre, MU2, providing for conflict severability and an effective date.
Thank you, Bradley Miller, Miller Land Planning again. This is the south parcel, hopefully a little quicker here. Again, the same applications, land use amendment, rezoning, and site plan. And I guess we'll do the abandonments at the end, Jim? This is a little over 1 3/4 acres on the south side of Ocean Avenue. And again, we have another wide variety of residential uses, actually more on the south. There's 35 units that we're proposing on the south side, and a very diverse spread of different types of units, from studios all the way to townhomes. Again, we've got our access is from 3rd Street into surface level parking that's behind the buildings, which is, again, following CRA redevelopment plan, and our pedestrian connections that lead out to Ocean Avenue and to 3rd Street throughout the project. Pedestrian corridors along both Ocean Avenue and 3rd Street. And those pedestrian zones, again, they're in that 16 to 18 feet. We have a plaza area again that's off of Ocean Avenue. The ground level is commercial space. I'll get into the uses here in a moment. We have the same type of treatment landscaping-wise along the roadways with the canopy trees along the roads accented by the palms. There's a small little pocket park, if you will, interior into the parking lot in the back area. To go through the uses, our commercial space is all fronting Ocean Avenue. There's the little break that's in between is where the plaza is, and that's actually a covered area by the second floors that go over. So that's a covered plaza area. As you wrap around the corner, these are live-work units that are here that have the connection out to 3rd Street. There's 4 live-work units that are part of that building. So you continue south down 3rd Street. There's, again, this is at ground level. There's 2 apartments there. And the driveway in between, again, you'll see in the upper floors here on the next slide that I show, it actually bridges that crossing. So it's a covered crossing into the project. As you move on south to the southern end, there's 3-story townhomes on that end, 5 units there. And lastly, there's Andrew's house, which is a real hidden gem here in the city. It's the oldest house in the city, and that's incorporated into the plan as just a residential unit. And that's a picture of Andrew's house. The Dalmatas are actually in process of doing some improvements on it and sprucing it up a little bit.
Bradley, could that be used for commercial purposes, the Andrew House? Or is it restricted?
It could. We've actually had various discussions as we went through the process of how it could be used. It could be an amenity for the residents. It could be commercial space, could be a cafe, could be some sort of civic use. We decided to keep it as a residential use right now. There's discussions about could there be a different location in the city that it might be better suited and be moved to. So we left it where it's at. We definitely want to keep the structure, whether it's part of this project or whether it's moved. I think time will tell on how that pans out. But it's kind of like the other options for the park at the corner of 3rd Street and Ocean. We're open for some discussions on that.
Can you go back to that house? We own that property, right? CRA?
No.
We don't? Magnuson House. Okay.
That's correct.
Did anybody close it up for the hurricane?
Yes.
Y'all did?
It's shuttered.
Oh, yes. Just amazing. It's still
standing.
Yeah. Okay. Go.
I tell you, if you've never been in that house, you should have the opportunity to go in. It's really something to see.
It really is.
Yeah.
For the upper floors, residential uses, and again, the step down Ocean Avenue is along the left side, and it goes from 3 floors on Ocean Avenue up to 5 in the middle, and then down to 4 as you continue south, and then to 3 floors for the apartments. So this gives you again how the project is broken up into the number of floors as it moves away from Ocean Avenue and moves south. Again, responsible design for the residential that's to our south and to our west. As you get farther south to the townhomes, I did get a call from the property owner immediately south of the townhomes that after some discussion they closed with, "This looks like a fantastic project. I can't wait for it to go," which was a fantastic response. Similar to what I showed you on the north parcel, the upper part of the slide here is showing the view of Ocean Avenue looking south at the building. And there's 3 stories that line it. Commercial space all along this ground level that would be out to Ocean Avenue and the pedestrian zones to have that activity that we were talking about before. The building as it sits back behind those is 5 stories. And then 3 stories as actually the other one's just the reverse side. The townhomes there's 5 units. They're 3 stories. There's a 2-car garage that's accessed from the back side for all of these. And the architecture on these, Juan picked up the roof lines of Andrew's house. You can see the peaks. Actually, you can see it better here in the rendering. The peaks are matching the roof line of Andrew's house to pick up on that architecture and try that together.
So you can't really move that house in the future then, because then all this doesn't make.
And you're right. To move the house, we would have to make that decision before those 5 townhomes go up. You're absolutely right. For the renderings, this is Ocean Avenue, 3rd Street. My personal unit is that one. If I can put that deposit down, I like that one. I think it'd be fun on Pirates Fest. I think those are great. And then it steps back as you continue down 3rd Street. And then this is looking north on 3rd Street. This is 1st Avenue, which actually is access into the parking lot and the renderings for the townhomes. This particular parcel has no controversy, no questions. We're in agreement with staff across the board. I'll try to cut it short. We're in a rainstorm and all ready to run for cars. But be happy to address questions.
I know we talked about charging stations. Have you guys put in mind where those charging stations will be?
The charging stations, whether the north parcel or the south parcel, can easily be incorporated into either the parking garage or into the parking lot through the design. Mm-hmm. And again, the environmental part of this, similar to what Juan explained for the south parcel, it's the same. It's a reflective paint. The metal roofs are reflective. The building code is increasing. So all of that is, I think it's not going to be very long where that's just automatic. It's kind of already close to being there. Shane?
Bradley, the intersections, are they pavers in the intersections there, or is that just something for the drawing?
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't mention that. Ocean Avenue, what we're planning on doing with Ocean Avenue is actually raising the elevation, so there's not going to be any curbs. And yes, it would be paver block in those intersections. I know through your town square discussions, there was, I think Vice Mayor Katz found some paint somewhere that actually changes
color when it rains.
And that's, I'd love to see that, just to see it. But yeah, that would be pavers. But the thing about Ocean Avenue is it's designed to not have any curbs. So it can be closed off from Town Square as far east as you want to go, and you don't have the tripping hazard that's there with the curbs.
Thank you.
I'm done. So
right.
I'm open for questions.
I'm going to open it up to public comment regarding the south portion of the site plan.
Cindy, 316 Northwest 1st Avenue. I like this one. I like the style. That's where I thought we were going. It's good. Thank you.
Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I'll ask you the same question I asked last time about the handicap parking. When I saw the original plans, you have 2 handicap for this south parcel, and my initial question had been, it appears that with these townhomes, we're probably going to end up with an older crowd possibly living in these, and is 2 handicap spaces enough in this parcel? And I know the north parcel has, 11 or 12 handicap spots assigned to it, but this has, and I know you're following compliancy regulations, but realistically, is there enough handicapped if there's only 2 handicap spots for this entire south parcel? And I'm guessing it's going to trend a little bit older because you're getting townhomes, they're going to cost more, that's going to be an older person coming in possibly. So that was my question. I think it's a great piece. I just want to see one or two more.
The great part about the townhomes is they actually have their designated spaces in a garage.
Okay.
So it's a two-car garage. So they're not designated handicap, but they're designated for those units.
Okay, so that would work around any potential handicap issues.
Right. We also, I believe we have one handicap on street on the south parcel as well.
Okay, so you've
there's
added
really
that.
3 on that south parcel. It's hard to see because Dave's nice trees
Right.
on the plan. But so there's 3 that are surface, plus the townhomes have their own
Okay.
two-car garage.
Okay, and what about an electric charging station for the south parcel?
Those we will most likely incorporate into the permit
Okay.
design.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve proposed ordinance 17-027?
Motion to approve.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Katz,
Yep.
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus,
Aye.
Commissioner Cassello,
Yes.
Mayor Grant.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
Item E2, proposed ordinance number 17-028. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus,
Aye.
Commissioner Cassello,
Yes,
Cassello, Mayor Grant,
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Katz.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
All right. Now we're on to item F, approve the Village of East Ocean Avenue South Major Site Plan Modification. Is there any conditions of approval? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Site is approved.
Okay, now we have to jump back to item C, ordinance 17026, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, authorizing abandonment of a portion of the right-of-way consisting of mostly unimproved streets and alleys between Northeast, Southeast 3rd Street and the FEC Railroad from Boynton Beach Boulevard south to Southeast 1st Avenue, more particularly described herein, subject to staff comments. Authorizing the city manager to execute a disclaimer which shall be recorded with this ordinance in the public records of Palm Beach County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion? I spoke with our building director, Andrew Mack, today about this. Basically, as the abandonment is that we're not giving the property directly to the villages of Boynton. However, we're giving it to the adjacent property owners. And because of the development that is going through, they are in charge of paying for all the utilities underneath, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? And so it's not like we are giving these properties away. The city of Boynton Beach is going to get improved with all the different utilities underground, plus the value of the project that is going to be on top of it. So, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Grant,
Here. Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz,
Yes.
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus,
Aye.
Commissioner Cassello.
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been a long 2 years. This is an exciting day for all of us. I know the Delmatas appreciate all the patience and your assistance getting there. Thank
I
you.
look forward to my tour of Andrew's house.
Gladly.
I want to make a couple comments. I just want to commend the developer. I don't do this often, so make sure you understand that. I want to commend the team, the staff that worked on this project. I believe that you guys really took into account what the public has been saying for a very long time based on some past developments that have come through the pipeline, and you guys really try to take into account what the public is asking for in terms of building heights and trying to appease and reflect the surrounding area. So I commend the architect for thinking of that. I commend the developer for being cognizant and mindful of the public, and I believe this is one of the best projects that's come to the city in a long time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Excuse me.
Okay. Ordinance 17029, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Land Development Regulations, Chapter 1, Article 2, Definitions, amending Chapter 1, Article 8, Section 1D, Appeals, amending Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 2, Building Permits, amending Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 4, Variances, amending Chapter 4, Article 10, Flood Prevention Requirements, to update definitions, Building Division processes, standards, and adopt flood insurance rate maps and flood insurance study in accordance with NFIP requirements, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Yes.
Good evening, Commission. Good evening, Mayor. Shane Kintner, building official, City of Boynton Beach. I have a very short presentation if you like, or we can just talk about it. Basically, what we're going through right now is the updating of our flood maps. From previously that was adopted back in 1982 to the present, current as of October 5th, our new flood maps will come into play, and the adjustment to our floodplain ordinance in regards to most of it's going to transfer into the Florida Building Code, which will reinforce most of the items that are currently in place that we have intact right now. So if you'd like, I can go through it. It's a very, very, very short presentation, basically 5 slides, and we can talk about it if you like.
I look forward to those 5 slides.
Excellent. All right, so basically I'm just going to touch on 3 sections. If I can break the remote first. We'll have objectives, timeline, and our key changes to it, and then we'll show a little map of one of the key areas that have changed, that we're currently in a flood zone and that we're actually removed out of a flood hazard area. All right, so going into it, let me see, I make this right. The community rating system is recognizes and encourages the community floodplain management activities and exceed the minimum NFIP standards. Besides the benefits of reduced insurance rates, the CRS floodplain management activities enhance the public safety, reduce damages to the property, the infrastructures, and avoid economic disruptions, reduce human suffering, and protect the environment. Flood maps are used to help determine flood insurance and building requirements. Flood maps are being updated and incorporated to incorporate the latest and most accurate information into the maps so that they are better reflect the risk. And then federal law requires that if your property is located in the flood area, that you have flood insured mortgage, flood insurance is required. I broke it. Can we advance the slide, please? There we go. Thank you. Our timeline, FEMA issued flood insurance rate maps. The firm is our flood insurance study, FIS, which was adopted in 1982. The FEMA completed a reevaluation of flood hazards in the Palm Beach County area on August 18th of 2014. FEMA conducted 4 public workshops, 1 in Boynton Beach, to view, obtain assistance, and ask questions. Notice was published in various newspapers and Federal Register. A 90-day appeal period ended, and no appeals were received. The firm maps and flood insurance study will become effective as of October 5th of 2017 with the adoption and the second reading that we're currently going through. Please advance. The key changes is the reorganization and update of the flood definitions and requirements for the compliance with the NFIP, striking of the redundant provisions now in the Florida Building Code and Residential Code, adding requirements for flood variances according to the NFIP, clarification of designated flood plain administrator duties, listing of specific federal and state permits that may be required, and the requirement of development permits for other buildings and structures that are exempt from the Florida Building Code, and adoption by reference to the October 5th, 2017 firm maps and the flood insurance study guide report. Please advance. Currently you see in the 1982 flood map, Boynton Beach, Leeserville. This was a major area that currently is located in the flood hazard area. Over the years, people have applied for LOMAs, the letter of map amendments, to take their homes out of the flood hazard area. But with the new maps, please advance, you can see that entirely, the entire Leisureville area, except for some of the canals and waterways and lakes, are now those flood hazard areas. So with the elevation of the land, they recognized that when they did the topography, the LIPO of the area, that they determined that these homes were actually substantially high enough that would not be 100% affected by flood if flood occurred. Now, granted, I'll put out there the clause that at any current event, as what we're currently going through right now, if you have a substantial amount of rain, you could have flooding, whether you are in a flood zone or outside of a flood zone. Just to put that out there.
So for, I think it was January 2014, we had those 20 inches of rain. Did this area flood?
I wasn't here in 2014, but yes, when we had 20 inches of rain, that amount of rainfall, there's only so much ground that water can saturate at any given time, and you will have the areas that are currently outside that could have that possibility of flooding for a very short period of time.
Okay.
But when you have a rain event that triggers that enhanced environment, there's only so much our systems can do and deplete it at that time.
Okay.
What is the elevation of Leisureville? Do you know that? Above sea level?
Average, what I've seen out there, you're talking about 14 feet above base flood elevation. The base flood elevation that was in that area, we're talking between 8 and 9 feet right there. So you have a substantial difference. Now you got to understand, unless you're on the intercoastal and ocean side, you usually have what they call an AH zone if it's like a bowl effect, like a swimming pool. That water fills up in that area because land is higher around it. So in Leisureville has, all their homes were built back in the 1950s, 1960s. So everything's basically the same size and everything's already 5 feet, 6 feet above the base flood elevation currently that's in place.
Thank you.
But let me go ahead. In regards to the question that was asked, you wasn't here, but staff was here in regards to 2014. Did it flood in Leisureville?
No.
Thank you. I didn't think so. I'm good. We have staff to answer the question just in case you wasn't here and he was here. It ain't gonna flood now. Go ahead.
I was present in 2014 in January down in Hallandale Beach. And in Hallandale Beach, we actually had that same rainstorm affect us, and we had that amount of rain. And actually, the casino, the Hard Rock, not the Hard Rock, but the...
I'm concerned about the point, and I'm not being funny. I don't even know about the casino.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Is that it?
That's it. Oh, actually, yeah, hold on. Please move the side forward. In summary, so amendments will satisfy the mandatory requirements of the NFIP, enhance public safety and protect the environment, reduce damages to the property and public infrastructure, and avoid economic disruption and losses, and reduce human suffering. That's the end of my slide. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? I'm going to open it up to public comment. Seeing none. Any other comments from the board? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All right. May I have a roll call, please?
Who did the second? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Commissioner McCray did the second.
I did.
Okay. Commissioner Romulus? Aye. Commissioner Casello?
Yes.
Mayor Grant?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz?
Yes.
And Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
The vote is 5-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Last item, proposed ordinance number 17-020.
An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending land development regulations, Chapter 1, Article 2, definitions, amending Chapter 1, Article 5, housing initiatives, Section 2, workforce housing program, to convert the mandatory inclusionary zoning program to an incentivized program emphasizing project density and building height, providing for conflict severability, codification, and an effective date.
Good evening, Andrew Mack, Director of Development. I'd have my old presentation, but I can just open up to questions if you have some. I know that this is the second reading. We did have the presentation and discussion on the first reading.
Is there any differences from our first discussion?
No.
When we
Yeah, it's the same ordinance as we had proposed.
Okay. Does the commission want to have the...
I'm good.
This is our third time voting for it.
Third time?
Yeah. So I'm going to open up to public comments regarding the workforce housing. If there's any questions.
Do our two ladies want to talk? No?
So we are moving forward with our workforce housing program amendments. This is the second reading of the ordinance. We've had the first reading on September 7th, and then I believe on August 15th, we did a approval of what is now in the ordinance.
Correct. We had our first reading on August 15th.
So.
I think this is setting a record. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I was initially very for the workforce housing. I learned more about it afterwards, and I know I came to each of you separately at some point and said, please go back and listen to the minutes at P&D. Please talk to was his name Andrew?
Andrew Mack.
Padre, the board member who quit. He presented very astute points as to why we should not be going forward with workforce housing. And I, as a teacher, I'm going, oh my gosh, they're going to kill me when I go to school for standing up against workforce housing. And I don't understand it well enough. I hope you guys actually did do what I said and go back and listen to the minutes and listen to Andrew's presentation. I hope you guys did go and talk to him at some point. He presented extremely compelling reasons to vote against workforce housing, and I really, when I learned more about it, not that I could explain it to you, I really am against workforce housing, and I think we are wrong to go forward with this. And yes, I am a teacher saying that, but I think this is the wrong thing to do. I think it's the wrong thing for our city. And, you know, I know you're going to vote however you're going to vote, but I hope you guys took the time after I went to you and asked you to go look at this further. I hope you actually did do that and look at the compelling reasons not to go forward with this. Thank you.
Or do you want a presentation again? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Ahoy, Commissioner Casello.
Yes. He said yes.
Mayor Grant.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz.
Yes.
Commissioner McCrae.
Yes.
Commissioner Romulus.
Aye.
5-0.
All right. And then on the future agenda item list...
Wait, we got to go back to 9A for Commissioner Casello vote.
Oh, thank you. So 9A.
9, affirmative.
Oh, that back thing.
Yeah, 9A.
Regarding proposed ordinance number 17-023.
Yes.
You have to have the...
Vote yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
So I saw on the future agenda item H, commission to consider temporary suspending the enforcement actions of the Community Standard Division for those sections of the code that require corrective action but may be unattainable due to conditions created by Hurricane Irma. I guess I got a question for Mark. Are we still sending out notices if there is a violation?
Yes, Mark Woods, Director of Community Standards. Currently, we are still sending out notices. However, we are trying to be sympathetic to our community based on the storm.
And so there is really no deadline with the notice? Or is there a deadline currently?
If we send a notice, it has a deadline.
And so this item would allow them not to have the deadline? Or to have an extended deadline?
To not enforce those certain types of codes. It's not for every code section. It's just those that would be relative to the events of the storm, such as fences being down, fences in disrepair. We wouldn't cite for those if the commission so pleases to do that.
And can we? Okay.
We thought it better to come to you because it's by charter. It's our responsibility to do it. So we didn't want to not do it without you giving us permission to not do it.
All right. So I think it's, can we move this off of a future agenda item and discuss it? Or do you want to do that later on October 3rd?
That would be a good time. That way everybody knows.
Rather than move it off and discuss it, the hurricane that is happening, and this is before us.
Yeah, so can I get a motion to reconsider future agenda item H?
So move.
To new business item 12A.
Second.
All right. We're moving the future agenda item H to suspend enforcement actions on unattainable conditions due to Hurricane Irma.
Are we voting to discuss it at the next meeting?
No.
We're voting on it now.
We're voting on it now.
Because the problem is currently in
problem
place.
is people are getting violations regarding their fences, and so I'd like to.
I wouldn't personally just blanket vote to like. I think there's a discussion to identify what code violations would be considered if we just temporarily suspending the actions of the code enforcement. I mean, it basically says anything that's out of code right now, someone could say the hurricane caused it and they don't have to do anything. We need to have a discussion about what is hurricane-related code. Right. I think I wouldn't personally want to vote on this now, not that I don't support it, but it's not. I could say that there's a broken down car in my driveway because the hurricane made me spend money to fix my house, or I don't know.
Absolutely, and so
Jim wants to talk.
Jim?
I was going to say, if this had been on the agenda to discuss, I would have advised you not to pass anything by commission action to suspend enforcement of any code provision, but to direct staff to use its discretion in issuing citations and adjusting compliance dates.
Oh, yeah.
I hear what he said.
So what Jim said is that we would give staff discretionary regarding violations of community standards.
Yeah. Which they do anyway.
Yeah.
So I think we can agree with that. And then if you could come back on the next meeting regarding certain issues of the violations.
Absolutely.
We'll have a report.
Okay. We're in agreement with that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you, Mark. Now can I get the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned.